Carl Fischer.
Welcome, everybody. Happy Tuesday night. Here we are again. Welcome to the Tuesday Night Hang. Tuesday night it is, Season 4, Episode 9. My name's Carl Fischer. I appreciate you guys stopping by to our little webcast. And we're looking forward to tonight as we look forward to every Tuesday. We have a cast of two characters that are going to be joining us shortly. And wow. They're going to be joining us shortly. They're already making me laugh. We've been laughing for the last 20 minutes. So I'll bring them in here in a second. And I just want to talk and say hello to my friend here in LaGrange, Illinois. Say hello to my friend Stephen Wright. What's up, Stephen?
What's going on, guys? How are you this week? This fine Tuesday.
It's a very nice, well, it was green. You had a freaking bonsai green tree. And now it's turning colors. Has it always turned colors? What the hell?
Yeah.
Really? Where have I been?
I don't know. You want me to, if you want it cozier, I can.
No, don't start. Don't start with that. You're gonna like me. You're begin to break the feed now.
No, here's I turned it on my fireplace. There you go.
Geez.
There you go. Now it's cozy.
Yeah, well, you must be cold in Chicago. So what the hell?
Hey, listen, you're outnumbered this week, buddy.
I am. Well, not by much. Not by much.
This is true.
But everything cool?
Yeah, man, we hit the 70s today.
All right, good for you.
Yeah.
All right, it's coming around.
Yep.
Go outside in your banana hammock.
Well, it is Chicago, so after 40, shorts come out.
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh God.
Yeah, man.
So I got to apologize. Talking about shorts and banana hammocks, I got to apologize about last week. We did a little thing I had a little staycation. I went to a place on the beach, and the wind got the best of us last week. So I apologize. We had some technical issues last week with our hang. Thanks for sticking with us. And like I said, we have guests this week, which are wonderful. But we apologize for the wind and technical difficulties last week. We tried. We almost got through it, right?
Yeah. Yep. We were good until people started joining you at the pool.
Yeah, that was a mess, man. It was funny the whole night. Like I was setting up, I was trying to figure out where I could go, and there was nobody down. As soon as we opened the feed, I had like 20 people swimming around me. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna lose this battle here.
Yeah, I was getting text messages from people asking you to flip the camera around and zoom in. And
trust me, you didn't want to see what I was looking at. Talking about banana hammocks. Like I said, there was some You ever see Frogger?
Yeah, right.
It was like the game Frogger. It was interesting. But we
gave it the college try.
Yeah, thanks for sticking in there with us, Stephen, and having us get on there, and it was fun. And we got one more episode next week for season 4.
Mm-hmm.
Will be episode 10. We'll let everybody know who's coming out very soon. But tonight's a special night, like I say every week. But I always feel, man, very special, very happy and honored to have these guys hang out and girls hang out with me. And although we haven't had any girls on yet, have we?
Yeah, but we got plans.
We do have plans.
It's true.
But it's been one-sided. I feel so bad. It's been so, it's been such a male thing. It was just not planned that way, but it just kind of happened.
Yeah, well, Crystal has been enough.
Crystal.
Yeah, Crystal has been woman for the stream.
she's the woman. Nobody better than Crystal Telefera.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to take a couple weeks off after next week, and then come back swinging hard. So talking about swinging hard, that brings me to my first guest here that I'm going to talk about for a little bit here. This gentleman grew up in Chicago. Imagine that. Hey, Chicago, how you doing? Huh?
How you doing?
In Chicago? Hey, I grew up in Chicago. And he went through 70s and 80s in Chicago, and he left Chicago, went to the University of North Texas. Of course, I'm talking about for the non-trumpet players and the trumpet players. We have a nice mix of eclectic people here. We have some musicians, we have some trumpet players, we have some every field we have. So I'm going to try to keep it on a very even playing field, so to speak. So Dan Miller, a wonderful trumpet player, he went to North Texas State after he moved out of Chicago there. And then after North Texas, he moved to New York City in 1991. He is a wonderful trumpet player. He studied with he studied with Bobby Shue, the late great Don Jacoby, Nick Drozdoff, wonderful harmony teacher Barry Harris, John Haney, Ed Trutel, excuse me. He's just a wonderful jazz and lead trumpet player. He spent 10, 11 years on Harry Connick Jr.'s orchestra, traveled the world and did a lot of numerous records with Harry and TV specials. He's also toured with Wynton Marsalis and Maynard Ferguson, of course. We all have Maynard running through us. This is going to be a fun time. We're going to have some Maynard stories tonight. So Wynton, Maynard, Tom Jones, wonderful Tom Jones, and of course Woody Herman. I could go on and on. Lionel Hampton, Duke Ellington Orchestra. He played with Randy Brecker, Branford Marsalis, Frank Foster, John Hendricks, Charles McPherson, Benny Golson, Jimmy Heath, Tom Harrell, David Fathead Newman, Ira Sullivan. His resume doesn't need. Man, it's just it's like the who's who of jazz. Since 2005, he's split his time between New York City and Florida. He's my Florida brother now. We were New York brothers, and he's my Florida brother now. And he's a member of the Naples Philharmonic Jazz Orchestra, and he's also the music director of the Naples Philharmonic Youth Jazz Orchestra. He's a Yamaha performing clinician, plays Yamaha, and plays some Yamaha stuff. And he's great with high school, college bands. He had private study. He's an artist in residence instructor for University of Central Florida. Actually, I might be wrong. He was an artist. He might be on full time now. I think he is. So, I'm just going to jump into my. I could go on and on about Dan. I'll just tell you a quick little anecdote about Dan. Like I said, he's played with everybody. I met Dan on a telephone call with his teacher at the time at North Texas State, Don Jacoby. I called Don. I was talking to Don that day, and Don Jacoby said, his nickname was Jake. Jake said, hey, I have this wonderful trumpet player. He's going to school, Dan Miller and Craig Johnson. They're both at his house. And, they're getting ready to go out on Maynard's band. And, we'll look out for these guys. They're a force to be reckoned with. So that was my first recollection of actually knowing about Dan. In 1991, I finally met Dan. He was playing with Maynard. And he spent some time with me. And he had some really nice, encouraging words to me. I looked up to him. I still do. And then again in 1993, he was out with Maynard. And I just got done with a Wynton Marsalis Lincoln Center tour, and I was in between gigs, and Dan was really cool. Again, he was encouraging. He said, keep on doing what you're going to be doing. Keep on doing what you're doing. And I'm sure you'll get on the MF band. He was just always just positive. And, sure enough, that winter I got on Maynard's band. Both of us lived in Brooklyn around the same time, but, whenever he was in town, I was out on the road and vice versa. He was on the road when I was home, so we never got to hook up. Now we're in Florida. We'd like to hang out a little bit more. Dan's passion for music and his humbleness and his cool demeanor are just infectious to be around. I always feel enlightened and happy to be around this guy. For as great as a trumpet player he is, he's the same as a human being. And it's just an honor to have this gentleman here with us. So let's say hello to my friend Dan Miller.
Hey, Carl. Hey, thanks. Hey, Carl, thanks for having me. We're going to have a great time tonight. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. We're 2 hours away. We should hang out more often.
I know. It's crazy. We never get a chance to do it. Like we were saying last time we saw each other was at Terry Warburton's Warburton Palooza celebration that he had when he opened his new factory a couple of years ago. So
yeah, man. That was
great to see you. That really was.
That was a fun night. You and J.B. Scott and Rich Kelly and that was a wonderful night, man. We were good musicians, and Dave Steinmeier on trombone. Remember, it was wonderful.
Yeah, Terry's the best. He everyone wants to come and hang out when Terry makes a call. We're doing something, and I've known Terry since I've been a freshman in high school, and he's one of the most beautiful cats, and so giving of his time and his expertise. And of course, he's selfless when it comes to helping music education, so can't say enough great things about Terry. He's just the most beautiful guy.
Yeah, man, he is. And, and you're very fortunate too, because you've been a Yamaha artist, and I know they're very, I had some time with Yamaha too, and they're very cognizant of education. And please correct me because I probably botched it up. I know you're hanging with my old buddy Jeff Rupert. You're on faculty now at UCF, right?
Right. I was there for 5 years as an artist in residence. Okay. And I would come in and teach improvisation seminars, sharing the techniques of Barry Harris and running a trumpet sectional and working with the jazz trumpet majors. And they never had full-time jazz trumpet instruction there. And so I got hired. This is my second year, and I'm building a studio there alongside a great faculty with Marty Morell on drums, who was with Bill Evans for 5 years, and Richard Drexler and Per Danielson and Bobby Coble. So it's a excellent jazz faculty there, and I'm happy to be part of everything because I've known Jeff for 25 years, just like you have. Yeah. You've probably known him even longer than I have, but he's just the best. Yeah, good great people there.
Yeah. And, he's really, and for you to be fortunate to be there, they're very fortunate to have you, because I know it's a smaller program, but what they do in numbers is amazing, because I know you guys spend a lot of time with the students, and I've seen a lot of great musicians come out of there. So I'm happy that you're there full time, man. Congrats.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Jeff has really, built a program on the shoulders of his tradition, where he came from Rutgers, from Ted Dunbar and Kenny Barron and Prof. Bill Fielder. So using their philosophy, and it's a great experience there. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, good, man. We'll definitely hit that, when we get into some questions things. But
sure,
I'm glad you're here, man. And I had this impetus in my head. I was younger. I'm like young in heart now, but I always looked up to you and Roger, the next guest that's coming on here, because you guys were in trumpet section with Harry, and both of you guys were Maynard. And, both with Woody and Tom Jones, there's a lot of commonality and common thread there. Mm. And even between, I caught the tail end of it. I never got to really play with all you cats. I got to play with Roger a few times, but never touring. But I thought it would be fun to have both you guys here. So,
well, I appreciate you putting it together, because I've known Roger for over 35 years, and he's one of my dearest friends. And it's just so great to see him. Like I said, we've got to see each other when he comes down to hang with Terry Warburton a couple times to design his mutes.
Yeah.
And he was down here on a clinic tour a couple years ago, and we had a great time together with him and Vicky, and we had a blast. So it's just a pleasure to be here with Raj, because we've been through a lot together, and I just have known him for so long and have such respect for him as a great musician and a dear friend. So this ought to be fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing Raj in this environment.
Yeah, we'll get him out, man. We'll talk again. I'm sure every trumpet player knows Dan Miller, and every trumpet player knows Roger Ingram. But for people who are not trumpet players or trumpet heads, I'm going to throw some things out about Roger that you should know. It's pretty kind of, not Dan knows about it because he knows him 35 years. But we could both agree that Roger's one of the finest jazz lead trumpet players in the industry today. He's a world-renowned trumpet player, educator, and author. He originally hails from Los Angeles, California. He's lived everywhere, Miami, Vegas, New York. He now resides in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. So, Roger does a whole bunch of master classes and clinics throughout the world, high schools, colleges. He's very into education, just like my friend Dan is. He's played on hundreds of recordings, movie scores, commercials, maybe thousands, probably thousands. He's toured and recorded with Harry Connick Jr., obviously, Ray Charles, Wynton Marsalis, Woody Herman, Maynard Ferguson, Tom Jones, again, Paul Anka, Louis Bellson, Quincy Jones, Frank Sinatra, Chico O'Farrell. I could go on and on. His first gig touring, I believe, was right out of high school when he was 16 with the Louis Bellson Big Band. Tom Jones, like I said, he's collaborated with trumpet player Arturo Sandoval and won a Grammy winning album, won a Grammy for Danzon, which I thought was really cool. He joined Harry's band with yourself in 1990, recorded a whole bunch with them, just like you have. Currently, Roger's into a whole bunch of great stuff. He's toured with Lincoln Center, like I said, Ray Charles, but he also, in town in Chicago, he's in a New Standard Jazz Orchestra. He's a very busy contractor in town and out of town. He also plays assistant principal trumpet in the American Federation of Musicians, local union, Symphony of Chicago. He's one of the first solo cornet players in the Prairie Brass Band of Arlington Heights. The guy he does a million gigs. He's also an author of Clinical Notes of Trumpet Playing, which is a wonderful book that he put together. It sold well and it's still selling well. And if it hasn't, you need to go buy it. He has also been involved with making his trumpet. It's a wonderful trumpet, B-flat trumpet, Exo Brass Jupiter, performing arts clinician, artist. He's made this horn. I believe he'll talk more about it, but it's a wonderful design. I think it's a 1600i, if I'm not mistaken. It's a wonderful trumpet that he designed with the wonderful people over there. He's also has his own mouthpiece line through, I think it's Peter Pickett. He has an Ingram signature line with Pickett, which is wonderful. And Dan mentioned that he's a mute meister, man. He's designed and rehabs wonderful mutes. He designs them with Terry Warburton. You can go on mutemeister.com and check those out. And I'll just bring up, I always like to kind of bring it first person. My exposure with Roger was, I first heard Roger live with Maynard at the 60th Big Band tour with Maynard in 1988. I got briefly met him and was just totally blown away with his projection and sound. That trumpet section was just a section of beasts. Had Roger, of course, Wayne Bergeron, Pete Olstad, Chris Reyes. Well, you know, nice cats, man, great players. Fast forward that 7 years, I just got done with my first Maynard tour. I was back in New York City off the road. I was working at Sam Ash Music selling trumpets. Roger came in at that time. I had a big shipment that week of Schilke horns. I don't know if Roger will remember this, but he came in and we sat down and, you know, we talked about Maynard. He knew, you know, we talked, I just got off the band and we were both trumpet heads. And we sat in the practice room and we hung and played these Schilke horns for hours. I learned so much about Roger then, man. He was always striving to get better. He was very supportive of other players, man. He was just a total freak on a B-flat trumpet. I lost count of how many high passages he could play and make it look easy and then play low and have a beautiful sound. He was amazing. Also, what I think Roger has is a youthful exuberance for trumpet playing. Even now we're talking, he's like playing trumpet, like, you know, he has this youthful exuberance to play, man. And it just exudes from him too. So that's why I love putting you guys together. He practices what he preaches. He's a force to be reckoned with, and he's an inspiration as well. So ladies and gentlemen, let's say hello to Roger Ingram.
Hello, how are you?
What's going on? Exuberance?
That's a long introduction. You know, I have to live up to that.
That's not, I think you can though.
But, you know, it's quite an honor for you to ask me to come on here and answer questions about stuff, you know.
Oh, man, the honor's mine, man.
I love Dan, and I've known you for so long, and Dan and I, you know, what a great guy to play Harry Connick's gig with for 11 years was Dan. You know, he just gets this peripheral sound that's just huge, you know. Yeah. And whenever Harry would write something for me to 8VA what he was playing, all I had to do was just get close to the slot because Dan's sound was making the whole room vibrate, and it was just so easy. Just go bing, and there it was. Dan would just carry me through those arrangements, you know. So, and I would like to play in a trumpet section with him again someday. I mean,
I'd like
really,
to hear that.
the last time, Dan, that you and I actually played in a section together was on that band, you know.
Yeah.
Now I've heard you a whole bunch of times. You know, you post video clips of you playing the thing in Florida. You always sound so beautiful. I saw the one with you and Chuck Finley, and it was just what a beautiful combination of you guys, you know. But I got to hear you live, and Dan just he just gets better and better and better all the time. And Carl, you know the things I heard you with Maynard's band at the Blue Note. Remember that time?
Wow, I forgot about that. You just hit me. I forgot we hung that night. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I came in there with Gizzy
and Craig Johnson, I think, right?
And you just played your ass off.
Oh, thanks,
man.
man.
I mean, can I say off?
You could say off. You can't say ass.
But you know, it's like when you asked me to be a part of this, I had to I had to go through a lot of material, remember, and I was thinking, what can Dan and I actually talk about, you know?
Oh, there's plenty.
I mean, because, you know, nothing ever happened on Harry.
You guys were church boys. You guys were church boys.
One time someone snuck a 6-pack of beer onto the bus, and we all but, you know, we had a DVD player on the bus. Remember, Dan?
Mm-hmm.
And I brought out the entire collection every season of Little House on the Prairie, and I power watched through that whole thing.
Sure.
And we had
Oh.
we bought Rhoda, the whole collection of Rhoda and Laverne and Shirley, and so we basically we were pretty well behaved. We used to watch those videos and like, you know, talk about music and stuff.
Yeah.
One time Lucian snuck a pack of cigarettes on it. He smelled up the back of the bus one day.
God rest his soul.
And he got in trouble for that, you know. But I was thinking, you know, of all the bands that you mentioned for both of us,
Yep.
Dan and I only played together on Harry's band. We were both on Maynard's band at different times.
Yep.
I think Dan took my place on that band.
Mm-hmm.
And we were both in Woody Herman's band but different times Dan took my place on that band. And Lincoln Center, 2 separate projects. I mean, there's no taking anybody's place in the Lincoln Center band, because the way Winton does it is like, for this project, I got to get these guys. And it's not like someone left and you're going to replace it. Winton's very specific about his goals. You know, he knows it's a different thing. But you know, it's like I just became the custodian of a library of about 3,000 arrangements.
I was seeing that. Yeah, it's
I'm
big.
getting ready to start an orchestra here in Chicago. It's not going to be the Roger Ingram Big Band. There's me and 3 other owners of the band, and we're going to start an orchestra. We have a nice collection. We have like, you know, those banker boxes, Dan?
Yeah.
Where you can get about 40 charts in each one. Just Holman charts. I got 3 full bankers boxes.
Wow.
And Bob Florence charts, you know, Billy Byers, Billy May.
Wow.
And I'm formulating the plan. We have a committee that's going to handle this band. But when we get to the point to where we're actually performing, I'm having you come out, Dan, to be a guest artist, and I want you to sit in the trumpet section with me so we can like get that feeling again that I haven't felt for so many years. I mean, I've played next to a lot of great second trumpet players. I mean, split lead trumpet players. But sitting next to you Dan was like the Rock of Gibraltar, you know. It's
Still
like,
is, yeah.
And it's like, you know, he just sounded. The last time I heard you, been almost 2 years now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sound beautiful, man. So thanks for having me here. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
No, I'm glad.
Yeah. Well, it was a magical. That trumpet section, there was a vibe about it. Like Rod said, you know, Jeremy Davenport was playing fourth, and he was playing a Monet with a Bach 1C, and Roger just said, "I want you to. You're the base of the mountain or the base of the pyramid, and I want you to just." Play so wide open, and we're going to build on it. And so and Leroy Jones was sitting on the other end of the trumpet section, and it was just, you know, outpourings of just complete genius every single night. And to play with Raj, like he said, you know, the intonation in that trumpet section, never a word had to be said about anything about that. And, you know, what was amazing about it is Roger, his sound was phenomenal, and the size of it, you know, and working with so many different players and all these different people that I heard. And, you know, he had such a respect for the legacy of first trumpet, playing in, you know, owing a debt to Conrad Gazzo and Snooky Young and Al Porcino, and that he swung so hard. And he played the book the same swinging way every night, and it was not only was it consistent. When I say he never missed, that's not a exaggeration. I mean, people always ask about that opening to Blue Light, Red Light, and I say we played it 1,000,000 times, from a 5 a.m. sound check for the Today Show to on every television show you can imagine, and played it 28 nights in a row, no days off. And he drilled it every time because his consistency and his dedication to the swing is what's the most important. and how he phrased the book, and it just made it a pleasure to hook it up, you know, and it was an incredible feeling, and with Roger and Jeremy and Leroy, and it just felt so good every night, you know, when we got on the bandstand, the stuff was going to be hooked up, and it was going to be swinging hard, especially, you know, when we're playing with somebody like Shannon Powell and Ben Wolf in the rhythm section.
Hey, with a rhythm section like that, you can't miss.
No,
I mean,
those guys are
you had Russell Malone playing guitar,
Unreal.
on bass,
Yep.
Shannon Powell, and Harry. You know, he's like a multi-talented musical genius type of cat. I mean, he's just such a great piano player.
Yeah.
He does all this other stuff. And then, you know, Mark Mullins and Craig Klein and
Jerry
Joe
Weldon
Barry and Lucian. I mean, you know, we could just name all the cats in the band. And it was, I think Wayne Bergeron told me one time, he says, that band was a force of nature. And coming from Wayne Bergeron, it's a huge compliment because, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, and Wayne and I have been friends since we were teenagers, but he just said to me one time after that Blue Light, Red Light album came out, he said, Jesus, you know, it's like, man, he says, that's like, what a great band. He still says it. I'll put something up, you know.
We all say that, Raj. I mean,
But, you know, it was because of the culmination of everybody. It wasn't just one person to say that band. It was a fluke.
Yep.
The mere fact that a guy who was as young as Harry and as popular as Harry decided to use a big band as his vehicle, that in itself is a fluke. I mean, you know,
and the people at Sony were telling him not to do it, and that it hadn't been done in years. You can't carry 16 men and a 10-person crew and get X amount of hotel rooms and 4 buses every night. It's not going to work.
I know, and it's like, and people just kept on getting him to try to cut the band down, and then other people started doing it.
Yeah.
You know, there's some other really well-known singers, great singers, started putting it back together, and it was really a great thing for a long time. And then he broke up the band around 1993. He wanted to do something else for a while, and then he started it back up in 97. So between 93 and 97, that's when Dan and I got to tour with Ray Charles for a while and Lincoln Center for a while, and I got to do another record with Maynard. Dan and I got a chance to work with some other people, and by then I was living in New York. I was rooming with Dan in Brooklyn for a while.
That's right.
And then I started rooming with Greg Gizzard over in Manhattan. But
yeah,
and that whole thing, Dan, was such a fluke. You know,
it was
the band, and what was great about it, what made it unique too, was there was a soloist in every chair, and that's not normally how it is in a big band. You know, I mean, we had, you know, your lead trumpet playing, Joe Baratti's bass, Bone playing, and a plethora of incredible soloists from the great New Orleans players like Lucian and Leroy and Craig Klein, and then all the great New York players like Jerry Weldon and Ned Gould.
Brad Neely and you know, and he even added Lewis Ford for a while as a clarinet. We had like 6 reeds for a while, you know.
Oh wow!
Because Harry had carte blanche with Columbia for a long time. He had a green light on doing all kinds of things. I just did one of these kind of interviews with John Snell from Bob Reeves, and we talked a long time about the recording session for Blue Light, Red Light. And Dan, I couldn't really remember the exact name of the studio. I knew it was RCA, and I know that Ellington did some famous records there, and real high. You heard the story. You heard me give it on to Bob Reeves. Was I correct about all the facts?
Well, it was. I remember it was there on 48th Street, and it was like we would go from the studio, and then we go down the street to Jimmy's Corner to
the bar
to discuss. But I know the story you're talking about. You know what Roger was saying is Harry was writing the arrangements while the session was happening, so it wasn't like we had road tested the material and came in to record it.
It was all new.
and as Roger has mentioned before, Harry wanted to do everything live, no overdubs. So everything was recorded live. Every take was recorded live, even on that Forever. I think it was Forever for Now, or one of those tunes where they had the pool table with the sound of the cue ball hitting and doing a break. They had to stop the session to call a gaming company to bring a pool table up into RCA so they could set it up, and then the producer could break the rack of balls while we were playing the chart live,
There was a good budget for that record.
Yeah. So what you were talking about was, we get to the end of the session, and everything's going good. I think we recorded 10 or 11 tunes, in 3 days. And the last tune we were supposed to play was Just Kiss Me, the B-flat blues. There's got like I don't know how many double C's in it. You're on double C's, I'm playing high G's.
The last one, he just held forever. In fact, I'm holding it, and I went, and then I came back. It's like you hear you must have held that double C out for 15 seconds, man.
Well, the one thing was, there was that sax solo, like you had mentioned, and we do a print, and there was something wrong with the sax solo. So we went back and did another one, and then we did another one.
Those saxophones.
And then we did another one. And we did X amount of takes, and we were supposed to go the next morning and play a benefit at the University of New Orleans at the UNO Stadium for Ellis Marsalis's foundation. So we're here up against the clock, and we've played so many takes of this thing where you've completely nailed these double C's over and over and over again. But we got to the point where we couldn't physically, and the studio time was up. And so Harry was just like, all right, we got to go, and so we didn't have the take we wanted. And so we went down to New Orleans, and we played this gig the next day, and we thought, we didn't know what was going to happen. And then the road manager, Jack Hyland, says, we're flying back to New York tonight. And so we flew back to New York, and the next day we walked into the studio. The mics were still set up. We sat down, and the first take was the one that's on the record, So we sat down, played for 5 minutes, and that was it, So
Harry is a real perfectionist, man, and he was real determined. And when he was going to do something, he was going to do it.
Yeah.
And there was no getting around it. And the same thing with Blue Light, Red Light. I hadn't played a lot of double D's, and we did a whole bunch of takes on that one. And it was actually beneficial to me because I had many opportunities to start really finding that slot. And I started getting more confident and started putting a little bit more behind it on each one, to the point where Greg Rubin afterwards said, man, I had to turn you off. The take you hear on that Blue Light, Red Light, those double D's, that's bleed into the trombone mics.
Wow.
Because it's like, and I said, well, I finally, decided. I mean, and what was it, Dan, about the 12th take?
Yeah, there was a lot of takes of it, but like you said, every time you were getting, because you had gotten that 000 mouthpiece from your time in Germany, and man, the sound of that mouthpiece coupled with the horn, that's what I was saying before, the breadth and the tone quality of your tone on those A's and the double C's and the double D's were just immense, and the hair on them, it was just, they were huge, the sound of it.
Me playing the A.
Yeah.
Well. And that A was like the whole house. It made it, all I had to do is get kind of like,
Yeah, when you have a great second trumpet player, man, you have something.
Well, I mean, but we used to play cards on that band.
A lot of cards.
There was a lot of long. Remember, we went over to Europe and we had that long bus tour in Europe. We used to get on the ferries, and like 4 a.m, we're getting on a ferry, and we're all just playing cards. We had these marathon card games, and we got real serious about it. I remember Jerry Weldon and Ben Wolf came to blows over a card game.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
know,
You wouldn't want to mess with Ben or Jerry.
Money on these card
Well,
games.
Jerry would get so mad, and then you'd settle up at the end of the tour. So I'd be like, the last night we're flying home the next day, and I'll be packing all my stuff, and that's when you used to carry cassettes, CDs, speakers, all this junk. So I'm packing up all my stuff. It's like 4 a.m, getting everything ready to fly out, and then I hear and a hotel envelope with the cash from the card settlement comes sliding under the door. He doesn't even want to see you. He was so angry. He's just like, I'd hear that, and it would come under the door.
Yeah.
I played a lot of cards because a couple of times we had bus trips. 3 years in a row, we had a gig at the State Theater on Hennepin Avenue in Minneapolis, and then for some reason they threw a dart at the map and said, well, why don't we go from there to Vancouver?
Yeah,
and we did it.
makes sense.
We did it 3 years in a row. So right next to this State Theater, there was this awesome old style newsstand called Schindler's, and we used to go in there and get Sports Illustrated, get all these things, books and magazines and videotapes or whatever for this trip. And then they'd have 2 drivers, and we'd split from Minneapolis and drive 2 days, 3 days straight to Vancouver and Seattle and just play cards the entire time. It was unbelievable.
It was like, there was
A lot of hanging out.
Well, I mean, in those days, I was still smoking and drinking, and Dan was smoking and we used to just chain smoke and just drink and never go to sleep, just cards.
Yeah.
For 12, 13, 14 hours in a row because money was being bet. And it was like, I mean, it was
serious.
It was.
Well,
I mean, the car was actually more serious than doing the gig.
Yeah, the gig is on autopilot.
It's like the gig. It's like we got to go back and play cards because we got to get our bread back.
And Jerry always had the soundtrack going. He always had the cassettes. It was Jackie McLean, Hank Mobley, Lee Morgan, Freddie Hubbard. He always had the music going on the tape deck. So we had a lot of. It was a good time, and
we used to bring the Andy Williams tapes and John, and we used to bring in Engelbert Humperdinck tapes. We used to sit and groove the ends,
Oh,
and
you're killing me.
and between that and the Little House on the Prairie,
Yeah, it was nice.
Rhoda, it's like we
Sure.
were pretty well behaved.
Well, listen, it's all about the hang, and that the stories you guys are saying about Harry is a wonderful part of a decade of your life, over a decade. But one of the things I want to talk to both you guys about is maybe some of these people don't know, because I don't know. Let's go back a little bit. That was a wonderful era, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But for both you guys, Roger, field this question for me: Who got you into playing the trumpet, and who was your hero when you were younger? What brought you to playing trumpet?
Well, I started playing trumpet when I was 8.
Okay.
And my father and my 2 older brothers were like saxophone, clarinet players, and my brothers were all involved in the band. I grew up in a little suburb of Eagle Rock in Northeast LA called Eagle Rock. And
see the pictures of you? You see the picture? I all one of
my dad was the Southern California Hot Jazz Society. My dad, when I had been playing about 2 years, and I memorized some tunes, Saints Go Marching In and stuff that. And I used to go to these jam sessions, and that's before I was even in high school right there. And
you look the same, though. You look the same.
Well, yeah. That's what my wife says. But so my dad was born in 1903.
Oh, wow.
I was born in 1957. So my mother was born in 1923. So, that's why I was able to be born in 57. But my mother was 20 years younger than my dad. And they both worked out of the house. My mom was a dressmaker, independent contractor for movie studios and things. And my father was a commercial artist. He used to do magazine layout, and they both worked from the house. Well, my dad always had music going.
Yeah.
He was playing the 78 records that he bought new when in the 20s, when he was in his 20s, So there was always Harry James and Louis Armstrong and Sidney Bechet and he used to like he liked Woody Weedoff, you know, and it's like, you know, it's like, and there was a little marimba, and I used to try to pick out the melodies by ear when I was about 5. This is before I started playing trumpet. So finally, there wasn't a lot of money in our house, and my dad and my 2 older brothers were all trying to teach themselves how to play, and they used to actually get into arguments and get into violent arguments about playing sax. And I wanted to be in the band program, but I didn't want anything to do with those arguments. So I said, I'm going to play a different instrument, you know. So we're watching the Lawrence Welk Show, which was a big event for us. Every week we watched the Lawrence Welk Show. Yeah. We'd also watch Ed Sullivan every Sunday, you know. And I saw this guy come out front on the Lawrence Welk Show and play a trumpet solo, and he sounded really nice, man. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. You know, I thought it would be easy because it's got 3 valves, you know.
That's very hip.
So that's how I started playing, and my heroes were like, trumpet heroes were like...
well, when you were younger, I mean...
you know, like Harry James and Al Hurt. I loved Al Hurt. I wish I could triple tongue like Al Hurt, man. I just heard him on the Sullivan Show before we started this thing on
Jumbo, huh?
Channel. You know, Al Hurt was a guest on the Sullivan thing today.
Wow.
And so was Jackie Wilson, and Jackie Wilson is just out of sight, you know. So, I mean, and then once I started, you know, becoming involved with the local Los Angeles scene, my heroes were like Chuck Findlay and Bobby Shue and Warren Looning.
Wow.
And, you know, Jay DeVersa. And I got to actually know those guys. And as far as
Snooki,
Gene Go, who was just a bad
Gene
dude.
Go.
And Buddy Childers and Bud Brisboy. I got after high school, I would go over every day after high school. I'd go over to Los Angeles City College. Woody James had a band there where he had some pros in there, and kids would come and they'd let us play a couple, and then the next kid would come.
There it is.
One day I got to sit between Bud Brisboy and Buddy Childers, and I was just in awe of these guys, and I started playing too loud on a unison, and Buddy Childers said, "Don't play so loud on the unison, God damn it!" And then from my other ear, Bud Brisboy said, screw him, man. You sound fine. and I love both of them, but Buddy Childers was like, man, if there was something that was not right, he didn't mince words. And Bud Brisboy was just this beautiful guy. And Bud took this thing up an octave. And I noticed that when we were all sitting in a row and we're all behind each other's bells, that the minute he took something up, I heard it less and less and less. And that's because it was leaving his horn faster.
Wow.
And then after I had my 2 tunes, I'd go sit in front of the section. And Dennis Farias was one of the other kids, and it was his turn to go in.
Yeah.
And then I sat in front of Bud. And then when he took something up an octave, it almost drilled a hole through my head. It was so focused and centered, it took my head off.
Wow.
And right then and there, I learned something about the upper register notes, about what's really going on with the trumpet. And years later, during the years later, I've had the opportunity to sit next to Maynard. I got to sit next to Faddis. And it was the same thing with each one of those guys. When they start ascending behind the bell, I started hearing them less and less and less. But man, you go out in front of those guys, and it's like, watch out! They're gonna take your head off. You know what I'm talking about, Dan?
Yeah.
You know, it's like just the physics of the way the whole thing works. But to answer your question, all those guys were my heroes, and then you have Chuck Findlay, who could do everything. I mean, that guy, he was gifted with perfect pitch. His facility on the trumpet is just ridiculous. And then I heard Jerry Hay at Baked Potato play with Seawind, and I said, how much more perfect are you supposed to play? You know. And then I got to sit next to Johnny Audino one time at a rehearsal band at the Union, and his playing was so great it scared me.
Wow.
I was like, man, that's the standard.
Yeah.
That stuff.
High standard.
It's like, so, that's to answer your question, man. It's like, yeah, those are my heroes.
Well, that's wonderful that you're, and going back to when you were younger too, that your family and your parents always had good music.
Oh,
and
but I was always Harry James, man, and
yeah, Harry. I mean,
Louis
come on.
Armstrong. I mean, it's like I was very fortunate, man.
Yeah. No, and growing up in LA. Now I'm going to pass the ball to Dan. How did your upbringing? What brought you to play trumpet, and how did it come about for you, Dan?
Well, my father, like Roger, my father loved jazz music.
It's about our dads, man. I love it.
Yeah, and he played the trumpet in high school and college, but he was more into cars, building race cars and drag cars and things of that nature. But we would always, it being in Chicago, all the bands came through. So we would see everybody that came through, Basie, Maynard, Buddy, Woody's band, Mercer's band. We would see everybody that came through. And then, so growing up there was great. And I was fortunate to study with some great people there. Nick Drozdoff, who was
Maynard's band.
Yeah, and he was a great influence on me. And also people like Gary Slavo, who was a great trumpeter who played on the Kenton Band with John Howell in the 60s. And also I met Brad Good there when I was a sophomore in high school, and he was getting his master's on bass at DePaul and playing trumpet all over the place. So I was studying with Nick and Brad at the same time, and I would come down to DePaul where Brad had an office, and we'd sit. It was like a sophomore in high school. We would sit in there and learn these Fats Navarro solos off of the record, which is what I wanted to do, because the year before I went to the Aebersol camp, I was a freshman in high school, and my dad gave me some money. He says, find somebody that knows what they're talking about and have him help you pick out some records.
Was this the Tom Harrell thing when you heard Tom?
Yes. So, I mean, that was a...
Tell me about it. It's great.
Well, to finish the record story, I met Pat Harbison the first day. And I said, Pat, my dad gave me some money. And Pat was teaching at Cincinnati Conservatory then. Now he's been at Indiana for 30 years. And so Jamie used to have all the LPs and boxes there. So we went through, and he picked out about 30 records for me that are still like the greatest records of all time. Clifford Brown with Lou Donaldson, with Art Blakey, all the Clifford Brown records, Fats Navarro on Blue Note, Fats Navarro on Savoy, Dizzy with Sonny Rollins and Sonny Stitt, Dizzy with Stan Getz, Dizzy with Sonny Stitt, all the Louis Armstrong Hot Fives and the Hot Sevens, Dizzy and Roy Eldridge, Kenny Dorham, Miles, Woody Shaw, Freddie Hubbard, Booker Little. So and Jamie had the records, they were like $4 each. So I just got like all these records and started listening endlessly. And so then the camp that week, they brought in Tom Harrell for one day, and he came into the jazz trumpet master class. I was a freshman in high school, and he came in there with Hal Galper, and they just sat at the piano, and Tom played the blues on all 12 keys, and he, played Joy Spring, he played Cherokee, and I was sitting right in it was at Illinois Wesleyan University, and I was you're sitting in those little desks, right? And I'm sitting in that little desk, and Tom Harrell's bell is just 3 feet away from my face. And his tone at that time, his tone was just magnificent, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, it was at that moment, as a freshman in high school, I said, man, that's what I want. I want to do that, just like Roger, same experience, but, and it was Tom Harrell. And then he came down here, we played a couple of concerts together a few years ago, and it was just
picture.
It was
again, Steven.
It was just an incredible experience. We have a series here with a sextet at the Philharmonic Center, and we bring in guests, and I just said, I wanted to call Tom. So I called Tom and Angela, and they agreed to come, and we had such a great time talking about music, and because I had seen him, when he used to come to Chicago, play Jazz Showcase with Phil Woods, we go down like 5 nights in a row, and I used to do a lap job with the cassette. I had the Walkman Pro under the table, and so I would tape all these things. And I saw him with Horace Silver, too, with Ralph Moore. And then Bobby with Ralph Moore with Horace, and So meeting Bob, you're asking what was transformational, that event, but I was a sophomore in high school. I was playing in the College of Lake County Jazz Ensemble for Extra Experience.
Yes, man.
And so Bruce Mack was the director. And so it was a community college, and the band was good, but it was mostly guys working straight gigs, right? And here I am, I'm like 14 or whatever, and I'm in the trumpet section. And so they go, we're bringing in Bobby Shue from California to be the special guest. And I'm like, wow, and then I was reading all of his credits, and I, hadn't met him or knew about him before. So they arranged before the rehearsal for a master class for the trumpet section with Bobby.
Wow.
At like 2 p.m. on the Saturday or whatever, or Friday. But all the other guys had straight gigs. So I showed up. I was the only guy to show up. And my first time meeting Bobby was like a 4-hour private lesson with me and Bobby, because the other guys were all working their jobs at Jewel or whatever they were doing, And so that's how I met Bobby. And then, which started this lifelong inspirational relationship. And so the next year, 1985, I'm talking to Bobby on the phone, and he goes, one of my great students, Roger Ingram, just got the job with Woody Herman. So when the band comes to Chicago, go down there and introduce yourself. So sure enough, that like 2 weeks later, they were coming through, and I went down there, and the band was it was that great band, with Paul McKee and Fedchuk and Ron Stout and Raj and Mark Lewis and Jerry Pinner and Rickenberg. Yeah, that band.
That band, And Dan gave me, I think we had to fly out. He gave me a ride to, not O'Hara, but
Midway?
Midway, which is the closest airport to me.
I like Midway on Cicero Avenue, right off
I
Cicero.
I
remember, yeah.
Yeah. And, it's like I was so surprised that there was like an airport and a residential district. But Dan and I hung. You came and saw the band, and then we hung for like hours afterwards.
Right, that's right. And then every time you guys come through Chicago a lot, because you would be either Chicago or Milwaukee at Summerfest, and then when I was you guys came and you played. There was a music workshop in the summer up in Door County, Wisconsin, called Birch Creek.
Yeah,
and they used to have a jazz session, and I was up there going to it, and Russell Gunn was there too. Because they had the old East St. Louis Lincoln High School Jazz Band was up there, and then Woody's band came in for like a 2-day residency where they played 2 nights of concerts in this thing, and we had a good time hanging up there too. That was a great time, I
ended up playing with Russell on Lincoln Center. In fact,
right.
We recorded Blood on the Fields together. It was me and Russell Gunn and Marcus Prenta.
Yeah.
And he also came and subbed for Leroy on a couple of tours with Harry also.
I remember that, man. And there was some funny stuff that used to come back and forth between him and Ned on the bus. It's like
because Ned wanted to like listen to, like, he would either have like his audio tapes of all these Shakespeare and the Old English, and he'd be listening to this thing. It doesn't even sound, he couldn't even understand what it was, or he'd be sitting in the back trying to watch his silent films, and it was always a trip,
And Russell would be blasting like, some wild stuff, man.
Oh man,
he got into it, But it's funny how it all just kind of melts together, because then we ended up doing the same gigs with all these people, and it's like it was just always such a beautiful hang, to see everybody, and we've all ended up in these places where we live now, but you got to live somewhere. But it's like, I like going out and playing, and I know you do too, and if there's not an opportunity for me to play, I'm going to create it. You know? It's kind of like, because that's why I'm here, that's why we're doing this. And like I said, I don't know if I mentioned it, Vicky, my wife and I, we're getting our first round of vaccines tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in 2-3 weeks, we're going to get the other ones. And more people, people are going, oh man, it's still slow. And then I said to them, compared to this time a year ago, we're doing a lot better.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe we'll be able to go out and start playing,
Yeah.
I think so.
But I don't know why I got onto all that. So
No, it's all good, man. I
we
mean,
were
we're
talking about fun stuff.
Yeah, no, let's talk about fun stuff. Actually, Steven, I see our chat going crazy. Well, let's bring in
man.
some chat and some live people and see what they have to say to our friends here.
I'll be right back. I'm just gonna use the washroom for a second.
Yeah, do your thing. Me and Dan will field this one.
It was all Roger's fault. Yeah, no, we got quite the hang going on over in the chat room as well. You guys mentioned a few names, so I want to make sure that I point those out. Dan, you mentioned Nick Drozdoff a few times. Nick is hanging with us. Nick is hanging with us in the chat.
Hey, Nick.
See, we got some of the regular crowd of the hang, Noah and Ryan. We got Mike, Stacy, Melissa and Teddy from Songs in the Attic. The hang monster, Frank Benici. You got Greg and Brenda in Missouri.
Happy birthday, Melissa and Hang Monster. What's going on?
Yeah. So let's see. We got a lot of people are just saying hello and reiterating a lot of the great stories. I know a lot of people wanted to kind of hear a little bit of the background, which I'm glad we got to. Let's see here. Actually, Carl, I had a question. Had a question for you. That came in first. It was actually in regards to the Maynard tribute that was done, the most recent one, and
The most recent one.
the one right after he passed in 2006. Yeah.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
There's been a whole bunch of them, and I really don't like to get involved with the.
No, but this particular one, the
Too
official.
much for me, Dan.
Well, and actually, that's funny enough. That's what the question is about. Is they were asking, you guys have played with a lot of different artists, that have this historical, aspect to them, and how do you guys feel about ghost bands and being able to honor the music but not go out and try to replicate it in that same fashion, like don't try to out Maynard, so to speak.
Well, that's an impossibility. I mean, what made, and all of us know this to be true because we stood next to him, the amount of, well, first of all, he was a soloist, first and foremost. He did not play lead trumpet, but his influence upon the world of lead trumpet was as immense and as important as Snooky Young and Conrad Gazzo and Al Porcino. But Maynard was a soloist, first and foremost. And just like Vacchiano said that he was the greatest brass player of the 20th century because he could do things no one else could do. And not only, no one could match or replicate his sound and the energy of his tone. Standing next to him, like Roger was talking about, the feedback that you normally get behind the bell is a lot less because, like Roger says, your tone is coming together in front of the bell. So the sound is coming out. It's not being reflected back so much. But when he played, and you were standing on the front line, either playing the Fox Hunt or one of these things with him, and you're dialing it, or Chameleon, it was unbelievable. He'd take a breath, and it would be like you could feel the air moving, and and nobody played that way, and so, and we're talking about doing it every night. I mean, I remember we were on the road one time. We did 28 nights straight in Germany and in Austria. Bang, bang, bang. But we did a week at the place in Berlin, Quasimodo. But the rest of, And here he is.
Gabby Kleinschmidt tour. Kleinschmidt tour. Every night working.
And he's 40 years older than us, and he's delivering the mail so I mean, it's just people can't you need 25 guys to do one of those things, because
Maynard, because he played correctly, he got stronger as the tour went on. He didn't like run into problems. He ran into less problems as
right.
But
my socks are wet.
to kind of add to the question that was asked of Dan, Maynard's hero was Harry James, because Maynard was born in 28. By the time 1938 rolled around, Maynard was 10. Harry James was already on Benny Goodman's band, and then he started his own band in 39. So Harry was considerably older than Maynard, and you can still hear a little bit of Harry's influence in some of the early recordings that Maynard did with the Jimmy Dorsey band. Like, you can hear Harry's vibrato, and Harry and Maynard and Doc were born about the same time. They both were influenced by Harry James. But when Harry James passed away in 1983, you didn't see Maynard and Doc going out and doing a bunch of Harry James tribute concerts and trying to play Cheery Cheery Ben. It's like nobody wants to hear that. There's only
like yourself.
Do it
like yourself.
And it's like Harry James. It's like I think they were showing him respect by not trying to replicate what he did, because no one's going to sound like Maynard. No one's going to sound like Dan Miller. No one's going to sound like Carl Fischer. No one's going to sound like me. It's like everybody should just develop their own sound. And I think that's what Maynard would be telling you. It's like everybody says, well, he sounds the most like Maynard. Well, he sounds a little bit more like Maynard than that way. Nobody sounds like Maynard.
Yeah.
And no one's ever going to sound like Maynard. And it's like, it's a waste of time.
Yeah. Sound like yourself. Play like yourself.
If you like Maynard Ferguson type of arrangements, have some new ones written for you. Exactly. Because that's what Maynard would say. He'd say, yeah, man, and, just move forward, man. It's like, screw all that old stuff, man. Yeah. It's like Maynard was doing covers of the pop tunes of the day. MacArthur Park was popular on like pop radio. That's why Maynard did a chart on that. He said he wouldn't be doing MacArthur Park now if he was a young guy coming up. He'd be like maybe having a chart that, I don't know, Bruno Mars or Lady Gaga, and have it arranged for a big band so he could go out there and play a trumpet solo on that. And if it's in the style of the way Maynard played, that's great. But as for people to try to replicate, it's just not. I mean, even if you nail it, you're going to lose from your first note, because it's not going to sound like Maynard.
And that's why I get such a, we were talking earlier, that's why when they have these tributes, everything is a tribute now. And it's like, you were there. Unfortunately, I don't think Dan was there when Maynard was first died. We did the tribute when he was dead, and there's been a lot of tributes, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like you said, you got 20 guys trying to take care of Maynard's part. It just doesn't move forward, not backwards, and he would say, play like yourself. And why,
And
I just wanted to say, I had a story about his power and his energy. Like we were playing the Blue Note, and then Maynard got a call. I don't know if you guys remember the World League of American Football, and they said, "Can you drive? Can you drive? We're doing Tuesday through Sunday at the Blue Note." He goes, "Can you hit and run into a Monday night football broadcast of the World League of American Football and play the national anthems for the Montreal Machine, the Canadian national anthem, and the Barcelona Dragons, the Spanish national anthem?" And so Maynard goes, Walter, it was me and Walter White, and he says, "Walter, why can't you write a couple of charts on these national anthems for us?" And Walter, of course, is like, of course, So he writes these things. So we get, but union rules in New York, you can't rehearse on stage. The stage is only for performance or a sound check with the union guys on there. So we didn't, and we're staying at that hotel on the corner, so there's nowhere to rehearse.
Square Hotel, yeah.
Yeah.
Hotel.
Yeah, Washington Square Hotel. Yeah.
Washington Square.
A little tiny joint.
I know.
So they said, well, let's just rehearse in the dressing room at the Blue Note. So if anybody knows how big that is. So we stuffed the whole band in this dressing room, and we're going to read this thing. So, nobody's got a liar, of course. So you're holding your part. And at the last minute, Maynard is the last guy because his dressing room is next to the band dressing room. So he comes in, and he's standing in the door, and his bell is like here, like right in my face, like on my cheek, right? And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be deep, right? So we start, and Walter wrote this incredible version of the Spanish national anthem. I mean, it was just incredibly arranged, and it had Maynard ending on this double C, and we're playing through this thing, and Maynard's playing the main theme at the end, and I can feel the vibrations, like once he gets above the step, like on my face. I've never felt this experience ever in my life, ever again, but I can feel him. And then when he opened up on this double C, I could feel my face just vibrating from the energy of his sound. And it was unbelievable, because his bell, I kid you not, was 4 inches from my face. And it was
a term, let's go out there and melt the face.
And it was unbelievable. And so it was deep, but his energy, the power and the energy he created, I've never felt that it could be replicated, so
when I did the 60th birthday big band tour, and the trumpet section was Wayne Bergeron and me and
Peter
Olstad. And we did rehearsals at the women's club in Ojai.
Yeah.
They spared no expense.
It was expensive, yeah.
We were saying, what? What's that little hotel?
The Shangri-La was on the corner.
Yeah.
No. I thought it was the El Camino.
El Camino.
The El Camino Lodge.
And so we're doing rehearsals, and Maynard, he's got his glasses on because he got his hair and bought a bunch of 3-piece suits. We were going to do all the charts from the Birdland Dream Band days, Yeah. And so Maynard's he's looking at the oh yeah, man, yeah. And he's starting to remember, like, oh yeah, man, and Willie Mason. So here we are at rehearsal, and so Maynard said, okay, and now we're gonna do and we listened.
Oh wow!
A really hairy lead trumpet part. Maynard's solo on that is basically the lead trumpet part. And Maynard said, now, when I do the show, Wayne, Roger, I'm gonna come stand between you guys. That's what that picture is from when we're doing that chart. And so at the rehearsal, we're all set up in a horseshoe. Here's the trumpets and the bones and then the saxes and the rhythm. And Maynard's doing the whole rehearsal facing us. And so we're hearing them like full bore. And me and Wayne, just like every 2 seconds, we're just crying and smiling because it just sounds so beautiful. In 1988, he was just 60.
Yeah.
And and we heard the whole thing and we listened, right? Okay, the rehearsals are over. We're gonna get on the bus. I think we're gonna drive to Arizona. We're gonna start the tour. I think it was Arizona, and I had a couple of students in Arizona, and I got them tickets to see the gig. So this is the first night. So we're doing everything as we rehearse it, and it's going great. And then Maynard gets on the mic now, and I'm gonna go back there and join my boys back there in the section. And he goes walking up, and me and Wayne we're happy to have him there, man. So we start playing and we listen. Now Maynard came to about there on me. So his trumpet bell was like about right here. And I'm playing here and Wayne's on the other side of him. And Maynard starts playing this shout. I couldn't hear him. I couldn't hear him because I hadn't been behind his bell yet.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear him. And I started looking back at Wayne, Now you got to remember, Wayne had already done a whole year on the road with Maynard's electric band, right?
Yeah, he was with the electric. Yeah.
He knew what I was. Wayne knew what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because I was starting to look back at Wayne like, what's going on? And Wayne just looked at me and said, just shut up and play. Because Wayne knew that I couldn't hear him, right? And then the tune's over and everybody's, yay! And Nate goes down for it. Well, afterwards, my students came up to me and they said, oh, thanks so much for the tickets and everything. And I said, yeah, man, no problem. And I said, by the way, you know, when we did, and we listened when Maynard came up in the section, I said, could you hear Maynard? And he goes, man, that's all you could hear. He buried everybody, you know. So that further supported, you know, what I experienced when I had sat next to Bud Brisboy that one time. When more he ascended, more the sound just was going so fast. It was leaving the bell fast. And it's like, man, what a lesson in physics almost. Like, man. So when you sit there playing the trumpet and you're trying to hear yourself behind the bell and you're overblown to do it and you're overkilling everything and then you fail, it's because you're playing too loud. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't expect to hear yourself as well behind the bell as the listener is going to hear you, you know, standing in front of you.
That's why the cotton balls are so important, especially on that.
Bobby Shue came up with not earplugs, but put the cotton balls in, and you have like an internal monitor. If you're ever doing a gig with a rock band, and those amps really do go up to 11, and you know they're really high, and you can't hear anything, I can feel if I'm playing 50 or 60%, you know, because of that exercise Bobby Shue showed me. And you put the cotton balls in, you don't overblow it. If they want to hear you, the sound man can turn your mic up. You don't ever try to compete with an amplifier. And so, you know, I just thought I'd throw that in there.
No, that's an interesting tidbit because a lot of the gigs I'm doing now are louder gigs, and I don't do the combos, but I do have the in-ears in, and I have the in-ears pretty low, man, and I have the in-ear cracked, so I can still hear just a little bit of whine, and it's kind of like the old cotton ball thing, where I know where my muscle memory is going to be, and I know my percentage. But it took me a while to figure it out. I'll be honest with you. It's funny. It's a different scene.
You got a nice set of in-ears, and you got a good sound man. And
oh yeah,
like, they're beautiful, you know. But if you're like doing a salsa gig in, I you know, because believe me, my goal is to just work. I take anything, you know, and I have a little film canister full of cotton balls, and if I need it, I'll put them in there, and it's beautiful. It keeps you from overblowing.
That's great. I got to remember that one.
You know,
good tidbit. What other questions we have to come through our friends here on the chat? Because I can ask these guys a million questions, but it's a community thing and it's a community hang. So let's hit a couple of them before everybody gets too tired, and then I can hit whatever's left.
Yeah. Let's see.
That's all right with you guys.
Yeah. Quick hello to Scott Engelbright, also a friend from the Maynard Band.
Hey, brother.
Hanging with us. Next question that we had in the chat is from James, saying supposedly Roger went into an all-state audition and Bud Brisboy was one of the judges. Is there any truth to that story?
Yeah, you know what happened. If you got time, I'll tell the story. The Eagle Rock High School Jazz Band. We went to the Reno Jazz Festival, and then it was just a high school big band competition, right? And all the bands played, and the adjudicators, I think it was Don Menza, Frank Rosalino, and Bud Brisboy were the judges for this. Yeah, and you got to believe. I mean, this was like a long time ago, so don't put that in stone, but I do know that Bud Brisboy was one of the adjudicators, and he listened to all the bands, and you know, you got to fill out the thing. Anyone who's ever adjudicated, you fill out the thing, you know, and there's a ton of bands, and then afterwards, the audition for the Southern California Monterey Jazz Festival All-Star Stage Band, where we got to, whoever got picked to be in this band got to go spent a week at the Monterey Jazz Festival and back up Dizzy Gillespie and John Lewis and you know, like all the performers there. And so we were a house band for the Monterey Jazz Festival. So they got a free house band, and we got the experience of doing it. It was beautiful. And so, and the audition for that was at the Reno Jazz Festival. And Bud Brisbois was going to pick the trumpet section for who was going to be in that band.
Oh, wow.
And it depended on what he heard that day. And so you had to, right afterwards, we had to run over to this room. There was a line outside this one practice room. Bud's sitting in there, you know, writing up, you know, the report on each. There was about 30 or 40 kids. I'm about number 15 in line. And so they're in and out. They get about 5 or 7 minutes in there, in and out, in and out. And so it's my turn to go in the room. I walk in with my trumpet, and I'm real nervous because I up till then I'd never done an audition. I didn't know what to expect. So so Bud's still looking at, you know, he's wearing these rose-colored glasses, you know, and he had this really cool haircut and everything because he was going to be a guest soloist.
So that's why he had a cool haircut.
Well, he took his ass off, you know. And so, well, he had the thing where the hair, it was like 1974. You know. And so Bud looked great looking guy, great trumpet player. He had these rose-colored glasses. And he's filling out the paper for whoever was there before me. And then he looks up and he goes, "Oh, you're the kid from Eagle Rock." You know, he says, "Shut the door behind you." He goes, "I've already decided that you're going to be the lead trumpet player on this band, but we need to kill about 5 or 7 minutes. So how about if I just give you a trumpet lesson?"
Wow.
That's my first audition I ever had in my life. It's like that's an interesting precedent to set for your very first audition.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
So as far as I'm sitting from this computer, Bud Brisbois picks up his piccolo trumpet because he's going to do some stuff on piccolo at night, and he starts playing a B flat blues for me on his pick. He had the B flat pipe in there, and he's going up in my face and going. He started a solo. He played about 3 courses for me, starting on double C, and he goes up to a triple C on the piccolo, and I'm just blown away. And he puts the horn down. He looks at me and he goes, "You got any questions?" And I said, "How do you do that?" Now, of course, the other 25 kids waiting in line to go in there and audition, they think that's me in there auditioning.
Yeah.
You know, so it was no surprise to anybody that I got the spot, you know. And I neither denied it or confirmed it, you know, because you only get a situation like that once in your life. Even at 16 years old, I knew that that's probably never going to happen again. I may as well just go with it, you know.
Right.
But I ended up. So what he told me when I said, "How do you do it?" He said, "Well, usually I don't tell kids your age anything about building the upper register." He said, "You got to do your fundamentals every day, and that's what the Arvin book and the Schlossberg book and the Clark book are for. And I don't want anybody to try to play high notes, not until you own everything from low F sharp to high C." And he said, "Because you might hurt yourself." But he said, "But I heard enough from you today with Eagle Rock to where I'll just tell you a couple things." And he started giving me a little bit of information about lift the shoulders at the end of your air intake, and what Bobby Shue later expounded upon for me. But he said, it's not about using a lot of air when you go into the upper register. It's about taking the same amount of air you use in the mid register, but speed it up. It's about faster air, not more air. And he said that the breath he does, he says it's a yoga breath. He says it's not designed to enable you to take the world's biggest breath. It's designed to be able to place the air in the right places so that you can posture yourself to increase PSI. I mean, because basically we're all human air compressors. You want to increase pounds per square inch, and the yoga breath is the most efficient way of doing it. That's what he told me. And that whole experience lasted about 10 minutes. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget having Bud Brisbois playing a triple C in my face, about that far apart from my face. You're talking about Maynard playing in your face on a piccolo trumpet. And it was so loud, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, and he said, got any questions? I was a 16-year-old kid. I was like, how do you do that?
Was this when he drew that air pivoting diagram, or was that another time?
Bobby Shue drew the diagram.
Oh, I see.
I mean, but you know, the thing is, with Maynard gave Bobby Shue that
Hatha Yoga book,
the Science of Breath book. I think when Bobby played with him in Vegas in the 60s, you know. And then it was years later, and Bobby read the book, and he didn't really make much of it or think much of it. And Bobby told me that when Motown finally left Detroit and moved to LA, that Bud Brisbois and he did a lot of the recording for Motown. And it was during that period of time, because they saw a lot of each other, where Bobby had the opportunity to ask Bud about how does that whole thing work with the book, you know? And Bud explained it to Bobby. And at that time, I happened to be taking lessons with Bobby, and Bobby drew the diagram, and me and Bobby Muzingo, the second trumpet player who played with me on E-Rock High School, we were the first guinea pigs for Bobby to try explaining this breath to a couple like snot-nosed kids like us, you know? So, and that diagram that Bobby drew, that all happened at the same time, you know? And so we were like, anytime Bobby learned a new thing from somebody, he immediately told me and some other people, because he wanted to see how it worked on other people, you know, because Bobby, that's, you know, the kind of mind Bobby's got. He's very, you know, Bobby's such a genius cat, you know, and he's such a great teacher. He explains things so well, but we were like guinea pigs.
Wow. And that was the diagram, I think, Dan and Roger, that he used to give out in the 80s and 90s to all the clinics he would do with the whole, you know, the science of breath, the wedge breath, the diagram, right? I still have it here in my library somewhere.
And then the air pivots thing about the direction of the air inside the mouthpiece, that's another one. It all came about the same time, and it's because of Bobby being able to work with Bud on those Motown days.
Very hip.
Right.
You know.
Cool.
Yeah, that was always interesting, was he talks about as we ascend that Bud Brisbois said that your airstream is striking above the throat and being redirected. And when you're playing high G's and double C's, your airstream is almost going up to 12 o'clock and striking and being redirected, like as it's going up.
Yeah, and you know, you can't think about too much of that stuff either. I mean, one thing that I heard, I think it was Charlie Davis talking about on a Bob Reeves Behind the Bell thing. All that stuff is good to think about, but when you're in the heat of battle, you can't be thinking about all this stuff. You gotta think about music and time and pitch and all that. But the thing that Charlie Davis studied with Bill Adam. And one thing that Bill Adam, and I only got to meet Bill Adam when we came through with Woody's band, and he came backstage and he was just beautiful. He said, "Oh man, the band sounds great." And I never took a lesson. But one thing that Charlie Davis mentioned in this Behind the Bell Bob Reeves interview that he did was that let your sound be the thermometer of if you're doing everything right.
Yep. It's
going to come out in your sound. And if you're doing something wrong, you're going to be able to tell by your sound.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like all this stuff you learn, you almost have to forget it, and you have to simplify it down to one single thing when you're in a session or you're doing a show or you're doing a gig and you got a lot of heat and pressure on you to do this thing right. You can't be thinking about, well, you know, if I move the air up to the top of the cup and it's going to redirect, and it's like, yeah, all that stuff's true.
Yeah.
But you gotta bring it down to just one thing to think about, and that's if everything is working correctly, the proof of the pudding is in your sound. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Dan?
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's the most important factor is your tone and having it be happening, because that's what people hear, you know. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
What do you think,
Awesome.
Carl?
Absolutely. I mean, as Maynard would say, strive for tone. It's always about the sound. You know, yeah, no, that's wonderful, because we, as trumpet players, we get bogged down with isometrics of this and analytics of that, and
it's
practice room, but not on a gig.
True.
Yeah.
But man, when you're in the heat of battle, you can't be thinking about that, man. It's kind of like, I want to just get out of here sounding good,
Yeah.
and knowing that I did a good job. Don't try to be the greatest trumpet player in the world. Just try to be good and just get this gig right.
Yes, sir.
Get it right, and let everybody else figure out who the greatest trumpet player is in the world. You know what I mean? It's like, how about just being good?
Yep.
You know, and taking care of business on the job, and like just see how much you work.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that will lead me to the next question. I'm glad you say that. So talking about being good and getting gigs, we all were fortunate enough to play with Maynard and Winton with Lincoln Center. I actually did a tour in '92. Both you guys, tell me some of your experiences. The bands were so different. Maynard had the smaller big band, obviously. Totally different players than Winton with Lincoln Center. Tell me about your experiences traveling with Winton. And I know, Dan, you worked with Tanglewood. You did that whole wonderful series with Winton. I know, Roger, you did Blood on the Fields. I was fortunate enough to do that first record or tour in '92. And it's amazing how different players they are, but really they're just great. And they have the same concepts. They just, you know. So talk to me, Dan, what do you think about how was that, those situations changed the way you thought about things, and how was it for you?
well, you know, growing up, seeing Maynard, you know, so many times, and you know, as we just fell in love with his sound and his persona, and to get the call to go on a band, and then you get to know the man. You know, here's someone who we loved his music and we respected as a hero, and then when you get to know him as a friend and mentor, like Roger said, all you need to say was, well, tell me about Dizzy Gillespie, or tell me about Benny Carter, and then he's talking for an hour about Dizzy Gillespie. Yep. Or he's taught, I mean, just unbelievable stories, and his love and passion for the music and his love and passion for the Cats, you know, how hard we worked out there for him. Yep. And that's one of the great things is, no matter if he dug you and he dug your playing, you're playing all night, you know, like you're blowing on everything, you know. Yeah. And it was just a joy to be around him, because he inspired us. And, you know, one thing that really I could say that was deep for me, I remember my first night on the band was in Pittsburgh at Duquesne University, and Craig Johnson was playing lead and I went out playing second. Yep. But having seen Maynard from the front hundreds of times, now watching him from behind, watching him breathe, totally different, and just lock down, you know, what he called, you know, his prana and his source of energy at the base of his spine, and watching how he would breathe, you know, because in the front, you know, you understand that there's a showbiz element to, you know, the breath and all this, but when you're in behind and you watch him breathing from behind, bang, and locking that stuff down, it just changes your entire perspective about what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. Yeah. And just being around him was a joy, you know, and, you know, to go all over the world with him, you know, we went to all over Europe and Japan. We went to India the first time. Sure. When he took the band there for Sai Baba's 60th birthday, you know, and he was just the greatest, you know. And then working for Winton, you know, getting the call to do that, you know, because he was still working 94, 95. He was primarily working with the septet mostly. And so, you know, we did a few concerts there, at at Lincoln Center, but we did this project up at Tanglewood for
wonderful, yeah,
4 weeks, and that was incredible, and it was one thing about the trumpet section, though. We had it was supposed to be a 4-part series for youth people, basically like the Leonard Bernstein series was in the 60s. Okay. And so the whole band was all pros, like the rhythm section, Herlin Riley, Eric Reed, Ben Wolf. Oof. But it was me and Kenny Rampton, but he went and put 2 young guys in the trumpet section, Pevin Everett, which was from Chicago, who was 18.
Oh, wow.
And Randall Hayward from Jacksonville, Florida, who was 14.
Wow.
And so they're both excellent trumpet players. Pevin was a great trumpet player, and he's a great R&B singer, and he's just a great individual, and Randall has grown up. This is a lot of years ago, but Kenny and I had to do a lot of sectionals because we had to get it together, and we're playing all that Duke Ellington Nutcracker Suite music and all that kind of stuff. And the thing and Seiji Izawa was there conducting the orchestra. Oh, wow. And just working for Wynton was incredible, and because, he told me, there's a lot of guys that do other things. He says, but your sound is the sound that I want here because of your sound. And the thing that was heavy for me was, when you're in the studio and you make a cut and then they go, okay, that's the one, we're printing that, then you're like, okay, we're moving on to the next thing. This, we would start recording at 9 a.m. and record till 6 or 7 p.m. And we're recording all day, getting coverage, doing all these things. So you never know what's happening. You never have that. And I went up to him and I'm saying, man, what's this? He goes, you're doing great. Don't worry about it. If there's something I need from you, I'll let you know. So that he instills such confidence, because of his playing. I mean, the greatest trumpet player in the world. I mean, he could play anything, and is such a magnet. And he does so much for music and music education. It can't even be mentioned. I mean, my respect and love for him is immense. He came down here with the band 10 years ago, and my dad was sick with cancer, and he couldn't go to the concert. And they had 1 day off, and it was the next day. And he said, come pick me up at the hotel and we'll go see your pops, because my dad took me to see him 1982 Chicago Symphony at Ravinia, where he was playing the Haydn with Chicago Symphony. And he also took me to see him with Art Blakey that same year at the Jazz Showcase. So he knew my dad through the years. So he said, let's go see your pops. And every time Wynton saw my dad, my dad was involved in racing and cars and stuff. And Wynton got this Aston Martin in the 90s. And my dad's like, don't buy an Aston Martin. You can't drive that thing in New York City. And he goes, he's like, I got to have it. And so then, so anyway, they always had a lot of laughs about that. So he came to the house and hung out at the house for 4 hours with my pops and my mom. And then, it was incredible on his only day off.
Humble guy.
And, and he shut his phone off. He says, I never shut my phone off. And when he turned it back on for us to drive back down there to go to dinner, he had like 75 voicemails and like 300 texts. He was just like, the weight of what he has to do and the sacrifice for the music is amazing. And he's an incredible individual. And they're both just the greatest. I can't say enough glowing things about Wynton or Maynard.
Beautiful.
That's the type of cat Wynton is.
Yeah. Yeah, tell me about your dealings with Blood on the Fields. I mean, I know he loved your sound too.
Well, my sound is a different sound than Dan's, and my sound is what he wanted for that project.
Yep.
And he was writing the music, same thing. Yeah. I mean, we were rehearsing at Lincoln Center, and we were in this one room, and in the next room over, there was 3 copyists.
Copyists, yeah.
Yep. and scores, and Wynton was like writing scores on the breaks and sending them to copyists, and we getting them. The ink was still, you know. And he wrote some really hard stuff to play, I mean, there was one lick that started on a double beat, went beep, you know, and so I had to jump down 2 octaves and then go back up there and pop it. And he wanted it to be right.
Yeah.
You know, and so we did the album, we recorded it and did the tour, and it was extremely challenging. It's like, you know, it came out in a 3 CD set, so if you got to spare 3 hours, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
you can listen to things. We did a tour in Europe, and Andy Baker, who's one of the trombone players that I work a lot with here in town, he's a great trombone player. But he's from England, and when we did that tour in Europe, he was at the concert, and it's like those concerts were so long. I think there was 2 intermissions. You know, were so long, and those tours were so. And we would go to one town where it's like it all became just a big cloud for me. It's like, because it's like you pretty much lived on the stage, and we go get to sleep, and then we travel, and then you're on the stage for like 3 hours playing this really hard, technically challenging stuff. You really had to be on point.
Yeah.
I mean, you really had to be there.
There's no BS in the witness.
And Andy said, I remember seeing you at so-and-so. I said, man, I don't even remember playing that gig. You know, because it was just all became one huge stage, you know. But you know, the thing about Wynton is his sound. Yeah. You know, he has achieved almost the impossible. He's a extremely sophisticated jazz musician who has become a household name with the general public.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why is because, and of one of the reasons that I think is why, is because he was classically trained, and even the general public, who they don't understand the thing about the chord changes and negotiating your way through a song, it's his sound that they gravitate to, the purity of his sound and his flawless execution of what he plays, which is some extremely sophisticated and sometimes technically unbelievable stuff that he plays, but it's flawless. And the general public, I don't care if you're a baker or you work at a gas station, one thing that all people have is an attraction to sound. And it's the sound that brings people in to what you're trying to do as a musician. Another guy is Chris Bodie. Chris Bodie is a fabulous musician, and he has this beautiful sound, and he has an extremely successful solo career that appeals to the general public, but he doesn't sell out because he still plays some really nice stuff, you know. Yeah. And so Wynton is, I mean, that's achieving the impossible, to become a jazz musician, becoming a household name with the general public. It's like, you can't, you know, you can't mess with that, man, you know. And he does so much for education, and he's such a nice kid, like that story with Dan and his dad. I mean, it's like, so, I mean, I could go on about this, you know, but Wynton, and I'm sure Wynton he's got his ideas with why, you know. It's like, you know, it's like, and you know, sometimes it's hard to look at yourself and make, you know, to figure out why things happen. I mean, that's just my opinion of why he's become so successful, you know.
No, it's interesting because, you know, we're very fortunate that we got to play with, you know, for me, you know, Wynton and Maynard are so different type of players, but they still demand just unbelievable respect in what they do, and they're so opposite, but they respect each other. I remember talking to Winton, I got on Maynard's band after Winton, and I hung with Winton, and Winton's like, "Oh man, you're with the Fox, cool, yeah. Lay on some of that Clark Terry, Clifford Brown stuff, man. That that recording he was telling me about." I was like, "Yeah, man." He was hip to it. So, and same thing with Maynard. Maynard's like, there was such mutual admiration, which is wonderful. So that being said, I know we're getting close. Steven, pick one more question for the guys. That I know we had a whole bunch of people. Maybe we can hit a few of them quick. Let's make a little speed round here.
Okay,
sure.
What is it we're getting close to?
Getting close. Aren't you going to turn into Cinderella?
No.
No, that's not you. Maybe it's me in my green shirt.
Yeah.
Somebody else, man.
My fireplace burns out.
No. Well, we're hanging. Dan, you hanging in there, buddy? You doing all right?
Sure.
All right. Well, hit us with some things anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Really quick, Nathaniel says, "Hey guys, I've been studying with Dan for close to a year now. One of the best trumpet players I've heard in my life. Really changed my trumpet playing for the better. And Roger and Carl, two of my biggest inspirations. It's awesome being here. Thank you guys."
Feel bad for that kid, man. He's got 3 horrible role models. Sorry. What's up, Nathaniel? You're in good hands with Dan.
Yeah, definitely.
He's also studying with Bobby via Skype. So
oh, cool. Yeah, he's a monster, man. He sounds good.
Is that his question?
No, that was his statement. We had a statement and a couple hellos, and then I got a question. So
come on, Cinderella.
Yeah. So we had since you guys were talking about Maynard, we had Frank Abramson and Sal Giorgiani saying hello.
Oh wow.
Really?
Sal says, "Hey cats, miss you guys. Love hearing the stories. I'm all about the heat of the battle."
Yeah.
So
yes,
then we
are.
Yeah. Then we get the next question that we had came in. You mentioned that Nathaniel was studying with Bobby over Skype as well. One of the questions is how have the three of you guys reinvented yourself during this time? Carl, obviously, we're doing a part of what we've tried to do over the last year or so during the pandemic. So how have you
my
guys?
Friends.
Yeah, exactly. So how has this kind of changed you guys' perspective on things? And I think interesting. What's going to be interesting is how some of this stuff remains after things even open up, because people have found that there's value in doing, being able to have access to anybody anywhere and being able to do lessons with anybody at any time. How do you guys feel this has changed things for you and is going to do things moving forward?
Sometimes from adversity comes many wonderful things.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't reinvented myself. I'm just trying to improve what I was.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've had a heck of a long time to practice. And I got some advice from Bobby Shue at the beginning of all this. It's like, stay busy.
Mm-hmm.
And man, there's a whole list of stuff that I can't do. So I work on it every day. I mean, there's no excuse not to play or try to improve because, there's a list of things I do well, and I've been able to carve out a career doing that, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that I would like to do better. I mean, that's what I got to say to all that. I haven't reinvented myself. I've taken this opportunity to improve. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been teaching on Skype and Zoom for about 6 or 7 years before this started.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that I do at the University of Central Florida, all my private lessons and my improvisation seminars and my master classes and such, all were transitioned to remote. So everything that I do at the university from last March through the end of this year has been remote. And then I was able to transfer almost virtually all of my private studio to this. And like Roger says, I'm just shedding. I'm practicing all day.
Mm-hmm.
Today, for instance, I had a student from 11:30 to 12:30. I taught basically all day and did a master class for jazz trumpet master class all day, and taught from 11 to 7 basically with a few breaks. And I'm playing all day, like Roger says, and I'm practicing, and I'm just trying to keep dialed in with my chops, because you can't replicate the strength that you have on real gigs, and no matter how much you practice. So of course, when we get back into playing multiple times a week, we'll get into understanding what we really need to do. But like Roger says, keep learning tunes, learning on, other solos, learning tunes, keep shedding.
Doing stuff that you don't usually do. I mean, it's like, I think, I don't forget who it was, but it was Doc Severinsen. Said if you sound good in the practice room, you're practicing the wrong thing.
The wrong stuff.
Yep.
That sounds sad.
My family just thinks I'm a horrible trumpet player, because all they hear is all the stuff that I practice that I can't do,
Yep. It's the
But
truth.
as far as this pandemic is concerned, my online teaching has tripled, and I find myself doing a heck of a lot more recording than I was doing than before it all happened. And, it's like I'm doing a thing coming up with the NATO band where I'm going to be a guest soloist on virtual,
Nice.
on a tune. And it's like more opportunities of that have come. I've been doing some things where I've recorded all the parts for 4 parts for trumpet sections. And I quickly realized that you can't use the same horn and mouthpiece for each one of those parts, because it starts sounding really weird. So I bring in I got an old 1927 King Liberty. I bring in an old 1946 gold-plated Chicago Binge. I use mouthpieces. And of course, when I lay on the lead parts, I use the Exobrass 1600i trumpet that I designed. I've been playing this for 12 years, but I've been finding myself set up, the home recording thing, and it's like, it's in some ways it's benefited me, because my recording technique is much better. Even after all these years of all the records I've done, I've had to learn and become more of an engineer now, because I'm dealing with the Pro Tools and the home situation, and it's like, oh God, man, I'm still learning how to do it.
That'd be good. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Roger just mentioned a little bit about the equipment that he's playing. We did have a question from Bobby asking about what equipment everybody's using right now.
Dan, go for it. What are you playing on?
I've been playing Bobby's Shoes trumpets since I've been a sophomore in high school. So I started with the 6310, and now I'm playing this 2 years ago. I'm now playing this 8310Z Mark II, this new edition that's come out.
Beautiful.
And I really love it. And I'm playing a mouthpiece that Greg Black made for me in 1991 in his Jeff Hill's father-in-law's garage.
Yeah.
Raj, you remember when we went out there?
Same mouthpiece?
Same mouthpiece.
Wow, man.
So I got to tell this story real quickly. We went as a trumpet section, Leroy, Roger, Jeremy, and I, to go down, and Greg Black and Jeff Hill were set up in Brooklyn down at the end in Jeff Hill's father's garage.
Right.
And we're like, well, how can we find this place? He says, don't worry. When you come to the house with the clear plastic bag with hundreds of empty beer cans, you'll know where the trumpet players go.
Wasn't Doc Cheatham and
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Was hanging?
Yeah. So we walk in, and there's Doc Cheatham and Buck Clayton are sitting in there.
hang with those guys, man.
And
Doc
so
was beautiful, man.
we were in there for hours listening to stories, Buck Clayton talking about Lester Young and all this stuff, and just endless stories from Doc and Buck. And so Leroy Jones goes, Doc, who are some of your favorite trumpet players that are of the younger generation? And Doc Cheatham, he was like 90 then, and he's like stroking his chin, and he goes, the young guys? And Leroy's like, yeah. And he goes, I'll I'm partial to Sweets Edison and Clark Terry, who were like both like 80 at that time, you know. And man, we laughed, you know, and he was just like, well, those guys are young guys to me, you know. So, but yeah, so I'm playing a mouthpiece that Greg Blackman built for me, which is essentially kind of like a Bach 8 diameter, an old Mount Vernon Bach 8 diameter, you know, with Giardinelli, old Giardinelli 3 backbore, 26 drill in a cylindrical section like Bobby told me to get made, you know. So that's what I've been playing ever since.
Works for you.
Carl, I know we've hit this on the stream a few times, but for anybody joining that's new, what you want to talk about yours a little bit?
Yeah, it's very simple. It's wonderful gentleman over here in Florida, wonderful Terry Warburton, Warburton mouthpieces. He also makes wonderful trumpets. So he made me a wonderful trumpet 3 years ago and called it the CF trumpet. It's a medium bore with a large bell. And I'm playing a Gary Radke signature series mouthpiece with it. I've been with Gary for 20 years and Terry for 4. And it works for me. It's a very flat rim, and what ain't broke, don't fix it. It's kind of based off my old Constellation type of thing. And Terry just did a wonderful job and knocked it out of the park. And, you know, it's personal. I think every player has what they like. Yep. But ultimately, you're going to sound like yourself no matter what you play. Obviously, the tool might be easier for you to play. I know Roger has a wonderful tool, and Bobby's horn and Dan's horn. They're all great tools. So it's just paintings with a different paintbrush.
Well, you know, I got a website, which is rogeringram.com. And it tells all about the Peter Pickett mouthpieces that I got, and
it's great.
The 2 books that I co-authored, that one with Josh Rzepka and the one I wrote, and
cool
the horn, and you know, it's like
it's a Jupiter 1600i, right?
Yeah, it's a 453 bore. It's a uniform bore. It's the same bore all the way through.
Nice.
After the taper of the lead pipe and before the taper of the bell, it's a 453 horn. And I really like it, you know. And
it's funny, we're always playing medium bore horns.
My mouthpieces, the one I've been using for a long time now, it's equivalent to about a Bach 7 rim.
Oh wow!
And it's a medium cup. It's about it would be equivalent to about like a Rees 41M. That's as small as I go.
Oh cool.
Because I play so much, it's like I almost can't even play that real small stuff, but my range is like even improved with the larger equipment, and it works better in the studio. You have more flexibility and nicer sound and more accuracy with a, you know, it's about like in Reeves numbers, like a 41M, or it would be like a Bach 7D. John Frost used the 7D for years, you know. So
very cool.
I got to go back. You know, Dan brought up something, man. So when I worked at Sam Ash, where I hung out with Roger playing Shilkees, one of my favorite days, usually Fridays, Claudia Raditti would come and hang, and then it depended. Every other week, Doc Cheatham would come and hang.
Yeah.
And he would take the subway, and he would walk like he was 90 at the point, and he would walk out the subway, and you'd see him coming down the street. And so, like, I'd walk all the way down the street with him because he was, you know, I was 90, he was walking slow. I'd get a cup of coffee for him. We'd drink, you know, he'd walk down the street, we'd drink coffee. He'd come and hang and tell stories. And, like, I wish those, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Those guys are not around. Clark, you know, Jimmy Heath, you know, Doc, those guys. I wish like Nathaniel and the younger musicians these days could actually see and hang out with these guys, because that's firsthand knowledge right there, man. You know, it's just, it was such a great time in New York at that particular, you know, between the 80s and 90s, man, it was just wonderful.
When they start talking, you shut up and you listen to everything, man.
It's crazy, man.
You know, it's like,
Wonderful.
it's remember, Dan, you and I went and saw Doc Cheatham at Sweet Basil, and I'd never met him. I hadn't met him yet, and he saw it coming in, and on his break, he went right over to our table, and you introduced me to him. He said, Doc, this is Roger Ingram. He's the lead trumpet player on Harry Connick's band. And Doc looked at me and said, lead trumpet player. you know where the word lead comes from? He said, from me. I was the very first lead trumpet player. He was the very first person that they coined the phrase lead trumpet.
Come on.
Because before that, you were a first trumpet player or a principal trumpet player. When he was on McKinney's Cotton Pickers in 1929, he had to play the highest voice of the way the trumpet section was voiced out, because he had the most stamina, and they liked the way he phrased, and everybody in the band started calling them the lead man.
Really? Wow.
And then they whittled it down to just lead, and then it became lead trumpet. And he told me, he says, I'm the very first lead trumpet player. So
there it is.
So he, remember that?
Yeah, because he said he didn't play any jazz until the 50s.
Really?
He said Shorty Baker talked him into making. Shorty Baker told him we need to make a record together, and he says your jazz playing is so sweet. He says, well, I never played jazz in public, and he says, well, you need to. And so because all he did was sit and play in shows and play lead in bands, and so in the 50s he made that one record. He started making records as a soloist. He told great stories. He was amazing.
Remember Jonah Jones? When you guys played the Blue Note with Maynard, would Jonah Jones come out? I know he lived around the corner from the Washington Square Hotel. Remember Jonah?
Yeah, from Hamp's. Cab Calloway cab drivers.
Exactly.
And he always had all those. He made a million records, cut mute records. He was great. The Doc Cheatham story he told when we went. That Doc told us when we went there. He said Louis Armstrong called him and said, I'm going to be sick. And they were both living in Chicago then. And Louis Armstrong was doing 5 shows a day. There's the Jonah Jones record. Yeah.
It's funny. It hit me. I was like, it's sitting right here on my desk.
But I'm going to be sick on Wednesday.
That's right. Louis Armstrong called Doc Cheatham, goes, I'm going to be sick on Wednesday. I need you to come and sub for me at the show. And so he's just like, I can't. And it was like a big production show at Chicago Theater, like 9,000 seats, multiple shows a day. So they got a full orchestra. The orchestra's going, and they got the dancers are out there, and everything's happening. And the timpani is rolling. And so in the production show, the curtain would come up and Louis Armstrong would come in a high C, right? And the place would go absolutely bananas. So the show is happening, and Doc says he's standing behind the curtain, and he's just absolutely terrified because he's just like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And the curtain comes up, and Doc says he just drills this high C and comes on it, and the crowd exploded, like 8,000 people. And then a split second later, they realized it wasn't Louis Armstrong, and it went dead silent. And Doc said he never had to play harder to win over an audience. He just and he played his butt off, and he said they turned, and got behind him. But he said it was one of the most terrifying things. But he laughed and Roger and I, we sat there laughing because Louis Armstrong says, I'm going to be sick next Wednesday. Yeah.
There's your history, boys. There it is, everybody.
And he made that record with Nicholas Payton. It is burning, when he's 92. Boy, it's a great record.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, he was a sweetheart of a guy, man.
We met at the Sweet Basil. He was singing.
Yeah,
I know.
And we stayed the whole. It was Sunday afternoon at the Sweet Basil. We went in there, man, and he just immediately went. Every break, he went and came and sat at our table and hung with us.
What a hang monster.
Yeah, he was doing that Sunday brunch there. It was beautiful.
Yeah, that was a great club, man. I loved that. I used to hang out with Nat Adderley there. I used to play with Nat there, and Vince Herring when Vince was in the band. Mm-hmm. Then Vince quit, and then it was
Antonio Hart.
Oh man, Antonio! What Vince is a wonderful player, and Antonio really stepped in that chair well for Vince. But yeah, no, it's wonderful, man. What else we got? We could go all night. What else do you have, Steve-O?
I had 3 more in the chat, and then the chat is kind of just hanging out with us at this point. Somebody actually mentioned.
Roger left.
Yeah. It kind of ties in together. You guys were talking about equipment earlier, and Carl, you made the comment that you guys are all playing medium bore horns, like
Yep.
as somebody that has worked at the Warburton booth for a while, I think that this is, if there ever was the perfect time to make the example where somebody shouldn't have a preconceived notion of what equipment they should try, this is it. Because we get so many guys come in and say, well, I'm not going to try that because it's this.
I need to play a large bore.
Yeah, I need to play a large bore horn. Okay.
Have fun.
If you're one of those guys, take a look at the screen right now. They're playing medium bore horns. I mean, be open-minded to this stuff, because don't think that you got it all figured out right off the bat. But yeah, there was a question in regards to chops. Have any of you guys ever been on a gig in a situation where your chops are just gone? And what did you do? How did you handle it?
90% of the time.
Yeah, that's from Sam.
You want to hit this one, Dan? I'll follow.
Well, one of the things that, what we're talking about, especially, but with any horn, a medium bow horn, is a quest for efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be, that's why your breathing is important. And Don Jacoby always used to say, 95% of the problems that you have with your chops are because you're not breathing properly or they're air related. Yeah. So we need to be efficient in what we do. And like Roger was talking about earlier, you're in that 50 to 60% area of mass of air that you're using. A lot of times guys are always overblowing, playing at 70%, 70 to 100%, and they're just burning their chops out. Yeah. So one of the first things that Bobby Shue talks about, and I preach this to all my students at every clinic I do, is about fluttering. Like everybody spends so much time talking about warming up, but they warm up and then they just play till they're pounded out. If they're not fluttering, you're trying to stimulate oxygenated blood into the musculature and into the lips to create that cushion. Yep. But the problem is, once they start playing, they stop fluttering, and you need to continually keep fluttering to keep revitalizing your embouchure, and it will change your endurance. Yep. So, understanding how to, and Roger, you were gone, we were talking about efficiency, in our breathing and leading to creating endurance, because we got one time, at one point we were playing 3.5 hour concerts with Harry Connick Jr. and, and closing with some big flag wavers. So we had to be dialed in after 3.5 hours of playing, on and off. And through the fluttering and understanding, like not overblowing, like we talked about, hearing yourself and trusting what's happening out front instead of depending on feedback from the bell will allow you not to blow yourself out.
It's the bell is shaped like this. The sound goes that way. It's not designed for you to hear yourself behind it as much as the audience is going to hear it.
Exactly.
And everybody's trying to, a lot of people who get into problems they want to hear themselves behind the bell, and you should look for that. You should be able to hear yourself just well enough to know if you're in tune and you're observing dynamics and you're phrasing right. But you should more or less feel. I can feel that if I'm playing at 50%, I can feel if I'm playing at 60 or 70%. I never play louder than 80%. And as much as Maynard was a showman, and as much as he used to really exaggerate his breathing, and because when we rehearsed, he just stood there like a tree. But I mean, he was a big show off. If you listen real carefully to some of those old Birdland Dream Band records, he's not necessarily playing that loud as he is just really focused, and he's centering everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, the trumpet can be a very deceiving thing, especially when you live behind the bell. Trumpet players are notorious for overblowing the horn, which is the first thing that's going to get in your way of expanding your register. Because trumpet players overblow their horns because we live behind the bell. Yeah. I'd love to have a horn made to where the bell turns around and the student.
I played one just recently like that.
I saw that.
I can tell my students, this is how loud you're really playing.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't it go along with what you were saying, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, the person in the chat asked about if we've ever been on a gig and we got to the point where we couldn't play anymore. And I will.
There's going to be some point. I mean, you know, everybody's going to get tired at some point. I mean, you know, hopefully you can do 4 hours. That's for a jobbing band. They call them jobbing bands here in Chicago, or club dates in New York, or casuals out in LA. You should be able to be conditioned and strong enough to get through 4 hours.
Yep.
You should be able to do 4 45-minute sets with a 15-minute break. And if you can get through that, and you know, doing weddings or bar mitzvahs or wherever, that's pretty much a requirement to be able to do a 4-hour gig. And then when you're on the road with somebody like, you know, one of these acts who carries a trumpet, a 2-hour show, after you've done years and years of being able to do 4-hour club dates, man, you know, you should be able to handle that.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, that's kind of like, that's the standard.
Yep.
That's the standard. And then we're only human. I mean, I don't care if you're John Faddis, who's this unbelievably tremendous trumpet player, or Wayne Bergeron, who's an unbelievable trumpet player. There's going to come a point to where you're going to get tired. And it's, you know, maybe for some people it's at 6 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe some people it's at 4 hours. But I mean, at some point, we're only human. So try to build yourself up strong enough so you can do a 4-hour gig.
And let the air do the work. I think that's the most important too.
And also, don't burn yourself out before the job by playing 3 hours before the downbeat. Warm up, get yourself into your spot, and then that's it. You know, you don't need to do a 2-hour routine if you got a 4-hour job.
I had Rashawn Ross on here a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking the same thing. And he was playing 2 hours before a show. And he went to Jerry Hay, and Jerry's like, well, tell me your warm-up. He goes, you already blow yourself out. 2 hours in your warm-up. You're already shot. I mean, I remember Maynard saying, warming up is for novices.
My goal, whether I'm working or not, is to play the trumpet 5 hours a day. That's my goal. Now, if I got a 4-hour gig,
there you go.
I'll warm up for maybe 5 or 10 minutes before I get in the car and go to the gig, and I'll all the way to the gig. And then after the gig, I'm all the way home from the gig. And, you know, a half an hour before the gig in the car and half an hour after the gig, that's the other hour.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, you don't have to be, you shouldn't be handcuffed to this warm up because you're so insecure about, if I don't do my whole warm up, man, I don't know if I can play. You got to learn how to be able to do like a 5-minute, 7-minute warm up.
Yep.
And then you got all your strength for the gig. And then afterwards, flap and drink some water, you know. But now if I'm not working, if I don't have any gigs, I practice about 5 hours during the day at 30-minute increments. I'll do 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes late morning, and then 30 minutes early afternoon, 30 minutes late afternoon. All right, there's 2 hours worth of playing there. And then maybe I'll do a half an hour before dinner and a half an hour after dinner. And maybe I'll fit in another half an hour. Okay, so 3 or 4, hours. And I just leave my horns out. And then in between, my wife and I will go have lunch or we'll go shopping. It's part of the family.
Yep.
And my wife and my family are so used to hearing me playing, they don't care. And, I'll pick up the horn, and if I hear something on TV and I try to figure out who's that guy playing that commercial? Is that Wayne Bergeron or is that Tony Cadillac? And I'll pick up my horn and I'll try to play it so that I can see, oh, okay, I can play that, or something like that, or I'll try, or hear something on a TV show, some horn lick or something, and I'll try to copy it.
Cool.
But I mean, there's playing and then there's practicing. I mean, I try to have the horn on my face, but hopefully 4 or 5 hours a day.
Gotcha. Cool. I'm sure we hit that question for you, Steve. What else? You got one more or two more?
Yeah, I got one more here. Actually, So the last two things in the chat question wise, I'll give them both to you guys now because I know Carl has at least one more, and we're already getting to Cinderella time. But the the one that we had here was for Roger and Dan. How did the duel come about? I'm assuming they're talking
red light, blue light, the house, trading licks.
Talking about Anguilla.
Yeah.
Man,
Is there a story to how that came about?
Yes, that was, man. It's like, I mean, Dan.
Well, Harry wanted to write a show opener, you know, and so we had all the charts from Harry Met Sally and We Are in Love, which were big selling records, and those were arranged by Mark Shaman. So when we first started getting on the road, Harry started writing himself, you know, and Jerry Weldon and Dave Schumacher were great copyists. So Harry would be writing, Jerry and Dave would be copying, and we were getting a lot of music.
Before the computer screens.
Right, before the computer screen. So they
Humes and Berg stand fronts, you know.
Right. And so so Harry wanted to write an opener, and he wanted to write something kind of in the style of Duke Ellington, like a big show opener where he would feature Leroy and Lucien and Craig Klein and Ned Gould and, you know, different people. And then he wanted to have this trumpet battle in it.
I loved it.
And here's the thing was that was what we had to open the show with every night.
And it was on a platform, a real rickety platform that was above the riser where the trumpets were. And we had to walk up this platform, and I think it was like 4 feet by 4 feet.
Oh, you guys
together, and the curtain hasn't opened yet.
Yeah.
And then the drum, you know, they start, and we're like, there's no handrails or anything, and we're like, first of all, and we're going after high notes, and I'm trying to get that double D at the end of the battle, you know, and Dan's like just pumping out A's and double C's. First thing,
first thing,
that stage is gonna fall down.
Yeah, I remember seeing it.
It was just nerve-wracking to do it.
No, it was nerve-wracking.
We're pouring sweat, and I'm telling you, man, the reason why I talked about those Humes and Berg stand fronts, because I had a 6-pack of beer and stick it under my stand there, man. As soon as that was over with, get out the coffee cup and put a beer in there. And it's like, man, we right there.
Hey, because we were just like, it had to start the show, so we were like, we had to get dialed in because you knew you weren't going to be playing a few charts and then you know you're going to get dialed in. It's like you got to be playing like an A and a double C, like out of the box, you know.
On tour, you know, and it's like that little platform, and they carried that same platform around. It was around. We had to be still.
I know.
It was gonna fall down, man.
So that was what we did it, and we had to do it. We did it every night, you know, and it was
Anguilla, you know.
Yeah.
And
but the quote you guys quoted Hot House on one of the videos on that, if I remember.
Well, yeah, I took that Dizzy Gillespie lick, that thing off of you know, cut from that.
Well, love that, man. Was that what was that from? Was that Hot House or no?
That's a Dizzy quote from Carmen. Dizzy played it on the.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Dizzy played it on that video with him and Bird playing Hot House. That's the only video of Bird playing in real, you know, and Dizzy used to play that a lot, you know. Yeah. He plays that on the original Night in Tunisia from 46, the RCA. Okay. And when we were with Maynard's band, I always used to, when I was playing on Night in Tunisia, I always played Dizzy's Last A on that because Maynard told me after Harry James, Dizzy was his favorite, and he always used to tell me the stories about Dizzy. And so I used to play that last A section off of Dizzy's RCA solo on Maynard's band, and he was always like, wow, you know. So
Dizzy.
The thing about that trumpet battle was when the curtain went up, there was just a spotlight on me and Dan and one on Harry looking at us, and the rest of the band was dark. So we, in our fear of falling and the fact that we had to even do this high note battle right out the box, we still had to show and have some sort of decorum that we're on stage and have some sort of showmanship quality. Like, in other words, we didn't want everybody to know how scared we were. I mean, that was as far as being any kind of showmanship went, because we're pouring sweat and we're just like, man, I hope this stage doesn't fall. No, now I got to play double D.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like we wanted to appear to be like,
this is easy.
totally in control of everything. And me and Dan afterwards, we were like, and we were so quick. And it was over. We were getting down those stairs, and back into the trumpet section, sitting down next to each other, going, "Oh God,
That's over." The first 6 months I was on Billy's band, Billy Joel's band. The lighting, one of the lighting directors who was on this show 2 weeks ago, Mark Fafano, comes up to me and goes, "I lit Dan Miller and Roger Ingram on that tour, and then when the Star Turtle came out, I lit that tour, and tell those guys I said hello."
Wow.
He said, "Tell them I said hello." But when I first joined Billy's band 15 years ago, he's like, "I know what trumpet players to deal with because I heard Roger and Dan right every night." So,
that's cool.
We had to kind of warm up before the show, like, and get that register kind of opened up for ourselves, so that because what you really didn't want to do is at that trumpet battle with the spotlight on you have like airball. I mean, like nothing. I mean, that never happened, but we'd go backstage and Dan and I would sit across from each other in the dressing room, and much to the chagrin of everybody backstage, we would pound out some double C's and A's in front of each other, just so we wouldn't go up there and like fold, because we got so stiff from them. And that was the beginning of the gig. And then throughout the gig, there was just tons of high notes on every single chart. So we were like, really, we had to live up in that. You know, I initially wanted to go on Harry's band, and I thought I was going to play it like the way I used to play Woody's book, you know. And it's like, well, that was a nice thought. But so Dan, right? And people, I mean, and a lot of people didn't understand. We had to actually pump out a few backstage before the gig.
The other thing about that recording was that was great performances for PBS in Dallas. And we were filming 2 nights of the 4-night run there.
Okay.
And so, you know, Don Jacoby was still alive, and he always used to say, when we play a concert in North Texas or something, he goes, "I'll be sitting in the back row, baby, and you can put it you put it right here, right between my eyes." And he never came to anything, right? So he called me, and he was just like, Jacobs goes, "Look, baby, I've got a hot date lined up for Friday night, and I need 2 tickets in the front row." And I'm like, and then I was like, are you sure? You know, like, because, you know, it was hard to get tickets, you know, like for this thing. And Jake goes, "I'll be there, baby. And I want you and Roger to put it right here, right between my eyes." And so I'm thinking, oh, the curtain's going to come up, and there's going to be 2 empty seats in the front row, right? But no. Shannon started that thing on Anguilla, and the curtain comes up, and here's the extra heat. Don Jacoby sitting in the front row, right? Like, and so we're like, all right, well, and we got to deliver the mail, and they used all the takes from that first night. Because it was just it was a killer show. That I think
you guys killed it. I remember hearing that and just being like, wow, you know, have Con will travel, Jake.
And it was a new band, and Harry was nervous, and he was like really on us. Harry in those days was really, he was kind of a taskmaster.
Really?
On top of writing all this stuff and the pressure we had to be under, if something didn't go right, we were going to hear about it, you know.
He was very vocal. He was not. If he wasn't happy, he let everybody know. When he was happy, was he cool or what was he?
Well, he let us know then too. I mean, you had to understand the kind of pressure he was under. He had to be that way. I mean, put yourself in his shoes, running an outfit like that, and he had so much creative freedom.
Yeah.
So, and when you have creative freedom and you're putting everything together, then you really want it. So you start creating. You can almost paint yourself into a corner. He had to make sure that everything was going right in every respect, you know.
Well, and Roger's arrival really, I don't know if we talked about this. I don't think we did. No. Really changed things because the band started in June of 1990.
Yeah, talk about this. How did it come about? Who got the gig first? What, Roger came second? Or?
He came. Harry was traveling with just carrying the rhythm section. Ben Wolf, Shannon Powell, Russell Malone, and himself, and then they would go from city to city picking up orchestras. You know, like so. I heard, you know, strings and big band in whatever city they went to. So 1989 in November, I heard from some friends of mine that Harry Connick was coming to Dallas and that he was thinking about putting together his own band. There was a tenor player from Boston, Chris Canellis. And Chris said, we should, you know, we were talking about it. And we said, well, we should go down there to the theater and meet Harry, you know, and play for him. And so the band came in and it was like, all the top guys in Dallas were in the trumpet section, you know, so it was like Jay Saunders and Chuck Schmidt and, you know, just all the top guys in town were there. But, you know, we came in the back of the theater. They were playing at SMU. And then I met Harry and Ben Wolf after they got done with the rehearsal. And then we sat and we played. And so then he said, well, Harry was saying, we're thinking about putting this band together. So then they called a few months later and said it's a go. Wow. And so we went out there and they had a lead trumpet player that was a great player from New Orleans named Stacy Coles. And Stacy Coles, rest in peace, he passed away. He was a beautiful cat, but he played he was in like a lot of great funk bands, like Cameo. He played all the stuff in Cameo and like different groups like that, and did a ton of R&B dates, and was a great R&B trumpet player and a great lead trumpet player, but it wasn't working out the way Harry wanted it to be. And so he asked what our solution was, and Roger was just coming off of Maynard's band, I think, and was in California. And I said, well, I know the perfect guy for this job. And and then Roger, you could pick it up from there. I think, you know. Well,
I had just, this was like 1990, and I had just finished doing the European tour with Maynard, and we did Live from London.
Yep.
And I think Dan called Bobby Shue because, you know, in those days we had like answering machines with little tapes in it. Yeah. And he said, do you know where Roger is? And Bobby was living in Van Nuys. And when I was in LA, I'd always go to Bobby's house, you know, and hang and, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And so Dan called Bobby, you know where Roger is? And Bobby said, I think he's coming home tomorrow from the European tour with Maynard. So, you know, call him. So I get home and there's a message from Dan on my answering machine. I'm living in South Pasadena next to Fred Simmons, you know, over on, I forget the name of the street actually. And so I called Dan back and he says, there's this guy, Harry Connick Jr. starting a band. And I thought Dan said Ray Conniff. And I said, remember Dan? I said, he's still alive? You know Ray Conniff? I had never heard of Harry Connick Jr., you know, and Dan said, no, he says, he said, Harry Connick Jr., he sang on When Harry Met Sally, you know, that film, and with, you know, and he said he's starting his own band, and the bread was kind of low, and we were doubling up, and I was like, well, I'm thinking. Dan said, no, Roger, listen, man, this guy's really going places, and the band's great. you got Dave Schumacher and Jerry Weldon from Hamp's band and Shannon Powell and Leroy. Dan sold me on going out and doing this. So I thought I was taking a chance on this thing. I went out and my first roommate was Brad Leely, you know.
Oh, jeez, alto player.
And so I didn't have anything else going, and I was looking at, you know, once again, I mean, I lived out of a suitcase for 35 years. I never ever, I was always based in Los Angeles, or I was based out of New York, or I was based out of Florida. I never got to spend enough time in either one of those towns to get in with and be one of the cats, you know. So I was looking at starting over again and trying to freelance in LA and maybe, you know, get a good break here or there. So I said, okay, well, screw it. I'll go on, because I love Dan. I've known him for, and I said, well, if nothing else, it's going to be fun. So Anne Marie Wilkins sent me a ticket. I left the next day.
Wow.
And I met the band in Atlantic City, and the first gig was at Resorts International in Atlantic City in August. And there was a rehearsal, and Harry wrote something out, and something went up to a double C, and I just went up and played it, and Harry he freaked out. He said, oh, man, that's great, you know. And then so I thought I was just going to come. It was a big band, and great. I mean, I just finished Maynard's band, but Maynard's was a smaller band, and Harry's band was a full-size band. I thought I was going to get to go in and play it like the way I used to play lead on Woody Herman's band, you know, which is really what I wanted to do. And then he started writing charts, and all the charts were like way up there. So I had to start figuring out how I was going to survive living in that register about 90% of the time. So I was playing a shallow V cup that was designed off the original Jardinelli MF1. Now, it wasn't a convex V, it was a straight V, and it had a 24 drill, and it was stamped 000, and it was the 000. And then I had another mouthpiece that was equivalent to about a Reeves 40S, you know, on the normal charts, to where I put that in so I could just, you know, hold on to my dream of just wanting to be a normal lead trumpet player, you know, because
that didn't happen, did it, Roger?
I wasn't going to be a normal lead player. So I had two mouthpieces I went back and forth on. I got to know them very, very well. I still have them, you know. Oh, cool. And but Peter Pickett makes me a mouthpiece now that does it all, and because I'm stronger now, I can do all that high stuff on a cup that's much deeper and bigger, and it's kind of one size fits all on that mouthpiece. Peter did a really nice job doing that, but so that's how that started. Dan got me on the band, and I went in there, and it was a different group. It was a weird band, man.
Did you guys think it was going to have legs like it did?
When I first, after my first week, I saw the machine that was behind Harry, and I decided to stay because I saw where this was going, man. And then Blue Light, Red Light came out. Yeah. And then the bread went up, and we started getting our own rooms. Yep. And I got to be really good friends with Jerry Weldon and Dave Schumacher, and I started being really close with these people. And every other week we were on like Conan O'Brien or Arsenio Hall or the Tonight Show or Good Morning America. I mean, the exposure we were getting was unbelievable, because Harry was the young, good-looking guy, and he had that nice voice, and you know,
licensed to print money, man. He was licensed to print money.
He has that funny personality. When he get on the panel of one of those talk shows, he was hilarious. You know.
Yeah. So Dan, did you have a gut reaction when you were calling Roger? Excuse me, on this gig, you had a really good feeling about it, or you just wanted to play some music?
Well, both things. I mean, I knew that the band was hot. You know, like we talked about earlier, there was a soloist in every chair, and you got Harry Connick playing piano and Russell Malone playing guitar. I mean, and Shannon Powell on the drums. I mean, forget it. I mean, just so swinging. And then Jerry Weldon and Ned Gould, all these great jazz soloists. So the band was really hot.
And that was out of the gate? That was
out of the gate.
Really?
That was the band out of the gate, you know, and it was.
I didn't know that. See, that's learning. That's cool.
And we did a lot of one-nighters, you know, so it was all one-nighters there because it was just starting out, you know. So we'd be Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland, Chicago, Milwaukee, all one-nighters, you know. But his popularity was growing because that We Are in Love had been released, had been recorded earlier in 1990 with the New York studio band, and it was going gold and you know, very quickly and becoming more popular.
No, We Are in Love was done in L.A. That was Rick.
Oh, that was L.A. Right? Yeah, the other one was New York.
Mark came and wrote all the charts. That's Rick Baptist playing on.
Okay.
Oh, really?
He sounded great on that stuff. You know.
All right, and so, but we saw that it was going and it was growing exponentially, and it was really building. And like Roger said, you know, being on TV. And Harry was doing movies. He did that Little Man Tate with Jodie Foster that year that came out.
Harry was playing his ass off and writing all these charts on top of all that. That's like it's amazing. Not like you know, Dean Martin had a big machine behind him too, and he was very popular. But Dean Martin wasn't writing all the charts and blowing great jazz on the piano and singing. I mean, this was an unusual
anomaly. Yeah.
Harry is an unusual guy, and it's like he was intense too. He had a lot of energy, and he had the Columbia Records contract, and he had full reign to do whatever he wanted to do, and he took advantage of it in a very creative way. You know, I remember that time. You know, Royal Albert Hall. And like, man, I'm telling you, there was a lot of heavy stuff that happened on that gig, man. You know, I'm sorry. I was going to think of something. I can't remember what.
That's all right.
Well, we were there multiple nights and they had full string orchestra and percussion. And, and it was unbelievable. I remember Bobby and Ernie Garside came one night to see us.
Ernie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey Dan, how you doing?
So it was, you know, we knew that it was going places because it grew exponentially. Like right after Roger got on there, and then we started doing a lot of television, and you know, and that record was not nominated for a Grammy that year. That We Are in Love was nominated for a Grammy. So everything started to really build and happen, and where we started doing more locations, you know.
It's too bad that he broke up the big band at the height of its popularity.
Yeah.
And then for about 4 years he tried doing a funk band and then tried putting it back together in 97. And by 97, you know, his audience, I think, was kind of pissed off at him for breaking up that big band. And then Michael Bublé appeared, you know.
Yeah, he took the wine chair.
He started competing with some other people. If Harry had kept that band going, it's like nobody was even going to get close to making the kind of ground that he was making with that thing, you know.
Yeah, man.
I just had a quick story that I wanted to share because it's about Duffy Jackson, who just passed away.
Oh, God rest his soul, swinging drummer, boy.
And I know Roger remembers this. So
Rings.
Yeah, Shannon left the band for a minute, and Harry brought in Duffy Jackson.
Oh, cool.
But we were playing and we couldn't rehearse where we were playing. I think we were in a casino first before that, because he came to Palm Springs was the second time he came. He came twice.
Palm Springs, man, you know.
Yeah. So we get in there to rehearse, but we have to rehearse in Harry's dressing room. I think we were at a casino, and because we couldn't use the stage again. And but there was no drum book because Shannon didn't use charts. He just is a genius at the drums and just set everything up. So Duffy's like, there's no book. So Harry would play the drums. We would run the chart with Harry on drums so Duffy could see what the deal was. Then really? Duffy would sit down at the drums. And so we go through the whole show, right? And I think we're playing at like whatever used to be the Golden Nugget or something like that. I forget. It became something else. But so So Harry had written this chart on like some F rhythm changes called One Last Pitch.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so Harry would play 32, and then Russell Malone would play 32, and then Ben Wolf would play 32, and then Shannon would play 32. So we rehearse it, right? You know? And so we get out there, we're opening the show with it, and we're doing the gig, and Harry plays 32, and then Russell plays a chorus, Ben plays a chorus. We get to the drum solo, Duffy stands up, grabs the mic, takes a scat solo. and the look on Harry's face, he's like looking up. He's like, "What?"
I don't think Harry didn't want that. I think Duffy was there for 2 days.
Yeah.
And then Harry said, "Nah," because Duffy will run around and play all the instruments and sing, and he's a whole show himself.
Yeah, he was.
And that's not what Harry wanted.
Yeah.
But man, we laughed. And then when he came out the second time to Palm Springs, he was getting his stuff. And he had brought, he was the drummer, right? So he had all his drums, but he brought two upright basses.
On the road.
Yeah, one he could keep on the bus so he could practice in the hotel room, and the other one to go with the gear so he could play bass solos on the gig.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And Harry was just like, all right. But Duffy, we love Duffy so much. He's just such an incredible drummer. But I just, when he passed this week, I just immediately thought about those good times that we had and how much we laughed. And
the first time I played with Duffy Jackson was my high school band director, John Ronaldo. Duffy was on the West Coast doing something with his dad, Chubby.
Mm-hmm.
He brought him to band class and had it sit in with the band. Like, this is like 1973 or something. It's the first time I played with Duffy Jackson. And boy, did that ever like light up the high school band. I mean, we had a good high school band.
yeah,
In high school band, Carlos Vega was the drummer, and Larry
Right.
Cruz was the guitar player, and David Stone played bass, and Art Velasco played trombone, and Doug and Dave Ronaldo and Gary Hypes. We had a good high school band, and then Duffy Jackson came in and played that 4-on-the-floor kind of like Gene Krupa style that Carlos Vega wasn't doing. Carlos Vega had all his own special other abilities. He ended up with James Taylor for years, but Duffy came in and played, and it was like, wow, like it was like and boy, as a lead trumpet player on a high school band, I really started, wow, man. Really strong drummer makes a big difference,
And if you're on Maynard's band, you have to room with the drummer. That's prerequisite. Roger, you're staying with the drummer.
Wow. But yeah, Duffy, that was a great experience. I texted with Jerry Weldon the other day, and he wrote about Duffy passing on his Facebook profile, and I just made a comment. I wrote Palm Springs.
yeah,
Jerry got back to me and goes, unforgettable.
yeah.
That was quite a thing. There was a lot of stuff like that happened on Harry's band. It's like we could be here all night telling stories about that.
I love it, man. Well, the stories that you told are I cherish, and I'm sure everybody out there. I know I learned a whole bunch, and hopefully everybody cherished the time we spent. The peanut gallery and the comments are done, Steven?
Yeah, we're all good. I'll just say, thank you to everybody that hung out with me in the chat tonight, and we still got quite the hang going on here in the chat. So thank you guys for your comments and your questions, and I'll say because I know there's a lot of students that are watching tonight, and I know you've heard a lot of stories and a lot of names, and if tomorrow isn't spent with a little Google time, then shame on you, because you're hearing the history is laid out right for you. So there's no excuse to not be able to find all this information. So I'm definitely feel lucky to have all three of you on tonight. So thank you. And Carl, I'll give you Actually, sorry, one last thing. We will have one more episode next week, and that'll finish out season 4. We'll take probably 2 to 3 weeks break. We'll let you guys know.
Depends if I go to meet Dan down in Fort Myers. If I got to go to Fort Myers to go to the beach and hear him at the barrel room, it's going to be 3 weeks. If I don't go see him, it'll be 2 weeks.
Yeah. So Dan, I'm going to be calling you. And then we'll
lesson with Dan.
Yeah, exactly. And then come back and have some more stories and some more hang time for season 5 if you guys are
in a big band again, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, we got to do it.
Well, I'm organizing one here. I'm taking my time doing it, but you're definitely going to be one of the first guests to come out and play with the band, and not just as a soloist. I'm going to have you sit in the section with me.
All right.
So we can maybe recreate some of that, you know.
That'll be beautiful.
Just for fun.
Yes.
That sounds wonderful. So that poses my question then. That's what Roger has to look forward to, his big band and Dan coming in and playing in the section and the guest book, right? I mean, what else do you have, Roger, on the horizon that you're looking forward to?
Well, I'm doing that thing with NATO, and I have some projects. I've been doing a lot of recording, and there's a new album coming out from the Joshua Jern Jazz Orchestra that I play lead on, and that's going to be released soon. This came out, which is this is one big band I play on, and it came out on my record label, which is 1-2-3. That's Onetootee.
Free. Yep.
It's the T.Ë.T.I Big Band, and this is just my Tuesday night band.
Nice.
I mean, I do that band, and I work on the New Standard Jazz Orchestra, and Joshua Jern Jazz Orchestra, the T.Ë.T.I Big Band, the Bill Bryan Big Band, the Bill O'Connell Big Band, and I mean, I do shows here at Ravinia, and I've done some of the Broadway shows. When it all opens up, I'm looking forward to getting back in there and doing that.
Cool.
And recording. I mean, I lived out of a suitcase for 35 years. I'm enjoying being just a local Chicago working musician. I got my family here, Vicky and I are. You
and beautiful Vicky are hanging tough in LaGrange.
We got our house here in LaGrange, and I do a lot of teaching, and I mean, I'm happy. It's like, so we're doing good. I got things coming up all the time, and it's just so great to be able to hang with Dan. It's almost like being there in person with you, Dan. It's like,
I know.
We had so many laughs. We were in Florence for 10 days. We were supposed to go right there and do a live TV show, and it was outdoors, and it rained for 10 days straight. So we got to go to all the museums and everything. We were on call. As soon as the weather cleared up, we're going to do this TV show. It was Harry and a very popular Italian kind of a crooner type of singer. Remember, Dan? And
yeah, we were supposed to do an outdoor concert in front of the Uffizi Gallery there.
Yeah.
And we all had pagers because it was pouring
and they just kept on paying for the hotel because it was rain. It rained for 10 days. So Ned Gould and you and me, we went and saw every museum there, saw the David and all that stuff. It's like 10 days in Florence. That was so hip. And we were just praying for rain every morning, man, so that we could go out and see more of this stuff,
Well, in the last day, the sun came out and we had to rehearse, block the TV show, and then do it live all in one day, Yeah,
and remember the promoter over there who was paying.
I wasn't gonna say that, but
he didn't want to give up the bread, and she said, "We're not going on until I had the bread in my hand right now."
He tried to pay her in lira. He tried to pay her in lira, and she said, and this is 10 minutes before the live broadcast on RIA, and she's like, "If you want this concert to happen, you'll be back here in the next 9 minutes with US dollars." And these two guys ran out. And then, like 1 minute before the top of the hour, they came back with the Halliburton bread. And then she stuck her head around the corner. She goes, "You guys can hit."
And that's kind of like being out with Ray Charles's band. There's a lot of times, man, if you didn't have Ray Charles's money there in cash, church would not put out here. You know, it's like, man, I mean, it's just like, there's so many stories that we could go into, man. It's like, you know, what a beautiful time I've had tonight hanging. Thank you, Carl. Carl, thank you for inviting me. I'm honored.
I'm honored that you spent time with me.
Ask me some questions about stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's really good to get inside. Yeah, I've been a fan and friend of yours for a long time, and Dan as well. And, you know, Stephen is a mile from your house, so maybe you guys can hook up and have some food. And I'll ask Dan the same question, and I'll close up. Dan, what do you have coming up on the future that you're excited about, my man?
Well, the only playing that I've really been doing is we have a sextet series at the Naples Philharmonic. It's in its 11th season.
Yes, sir.
And so now in order to do it safely, we've moved into the 1,500 seat orchestra hall. And so they're so limiting it to 225 attendees, socially distanced, everybody masked, everybody spaced. So we do one of those every 3 weeks. We've had Vince Herring and Pasquale Grasso and Randy Sankey. And I meant to mention this to you, Roger. Coming up on the 31st, our next one, Russell Gunn's coming down, and we're going to do two. So I mean, I'm super excited about that. You know, so I talked to Russell for about an hour the other day when I was driving in the car, and so he's coming down here.
I'm coming to that concert. I want to see that concert.
Tell him I said, hey, Wayne.
I know. So we're gonna have a good time, man. He wants to play the music of Miles Davis from the 50s and 60s. So we're gonna have a great time.
Hear that, man.
Well, that's wonderful, man. I'm glad you're keeping busy. I'm gonna come see you on that concert. Man.
Okay.
You know, come hear you and Russell tear it up. And I can't thank you guys enough, Stephen. Thanks for keeping us together and keeping everybody connected with the chat.
Yeah, man.
And my love to Roger and Dan and Judy and Vicky. Thank you, women, for giving your men up for 3 hours of everybody's. Everybody got to hang with these gentlemen, and I really am honored you guys came, man. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Carl. What a great time. Thank you so much, brother.
We'll catch you all soon. Stephen, thank you.
Raj.
Yep.
All right,
guys.
Dan.
Take care.
Bye-bye, Rod. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.